Alright, welcome back to Microsoft Flight Simulator World Tour. We are going to try this. The game's been crashing on me quite a bit, so we'll see what happens. We're taking off from Sanday Airport in the United Kingdom, and we'll see where we end up. We're going to listen to the Tony Kornheiser Show from Monday, September 26, 2022.
Previously on the Tony Kornheiser Show.
I assume that we haven't talked because T-Boy Latchley is out of the country and you had no picks, or were you out of the country?
I was out of the country, so T-Boy, he liked to get his algorithm tested the first couple of weeks, so now he's up and running and ready to go, you know.
Okay.
It's a very sensitive machine he has down there.
Yeah.
The Tony Kornheiser Show is on now.
Carville, by the way, opened with a 3-2 week. It's not bad. Monkey took gas. The Monkey went 0-3. We're still waiting on the Monday night game for Jeff Ma and for Chuck Todd, both of whom will have winning weeks.
I thought the Monkey took Philadelphia over Washington.
Did he?
I thought he did.
Oh, then maybe. Wait, let me go back in my notes. I just sort of assumed he took Washington.
Because it was against Chuck Todd. Yeah, I think he said normally he goes against
That's exactly right. So the Monkey was 1-2. And the Monkey is now 5-4.
Yeah, the Monkey knows the FedEx Field advantage.
By the way, can I say this about the Washington team? They were terrible.
Awful.
I don't want to hear about Carson Wentz anymore. I'm just, he's no good.
No, he's not.
They're no good, and he's no good.
It's almost like there's a reason
no
he wasn't
good.
playing for the other team anymore.
Yeah, Philadelphia was happy to see him because they knew how to defend him. And Philadelphia, by the way, had about 65% of the crowd.
Yes.
Maybe 70%.
Could have been, 70,
They
75.
owned-
Yeah.
Dave Sims from Philadelphia wanted to know about that. Said, did my boys take the town? Yeah, your
They
boys
did.
took the town. I'm going to open with a couple of emails here. I'm late on this one. This is from Lisa G. And this is from last week. We will be visiting D.C. this weekend, and I wanted to see what you might recommend we do since we won't be able to visit Chatter. The president had to reschedule our White House tour to Saturday. Guess he must be busy. So now we have a lot of free time on Friday the 23rd. That was last Friday. This past Friday. We plan to get bagel sandwiches at whatever the nearest Bethesda bagel is. But are there other places to eat at that are good? How about to drink and watch college football? I know you're old and stay locked in your attic most of the time. But maybe Michael can help with some recommendations for two folks in their 30s.
I have no clue where they're staying.
And I got to be late. I was late on that. I apologize to Lisa from New York.
I hope they found a good local place.
Lisa G.
Yeah, there's a TV at the Palm. There's always something there.
And Bill Isaacson, and this is an important email. And let's put the Burger King thing to bed almost.
Okay.
I know that the answers to all of our questions, not to mention any questions about the Big Ten, tend to be money. But sometimes the answer to your questions about money is the Google machine. For example, I took a look at a site that tracks Burger King prices state by state across the country. The site reports that for August 2022, the low price across the nation for a Whopper meal is $6.49 in Alabama. That's less than half of what I was charged. In Alaska, where you would expect to pay higher prices, it is $7.92. In Arizona, Wilbon has to pay $7.20, and in Illinois, he's paying $7.40. For your beach place in Delaware, it's $7.53, and when you drive through Maryland, it's $8.18. In California, they're jamming people for $8.31. And here in the District of Columbia, the cost of non-statehood includes a Whopper meal for $8.70, the highest price in the country, and still a lot less than you paid. The DC price is even 20 cents more than New York at $8.50, and 7 cents more than Hawaii at $8.63. And he also writes, I think I'm going to stop looking for a DC license plate starting with GX, GY, or GC, or JB, and start looking for a BK 0870. Bill Isaacson. It's the most expensive place for a Whopper in the country.
Yeah.
And it's still $5 less than I paid. I got cheated at the Connecticut Avenue Burger King. I got cheated. And to that point...
Can you name another Burger King in the city?
No.
In this quadrant of the city, that's the
There
only
used
one.
to be one down, like Wisconsin and M, but I think that's been gone for years now. Yeah.
To the point of Burger King one more time.
Gone like your chicken selects, Nige.
Yeah.
Let me wish everybody a happy Lashana Tova. Well, I don't have to say a happy Lashana Tova because it means Happy New Year. Today's the beginning of the New Year. Actually, last night was the beginning of the New Year. And towards that end, people from Baltimore who write me occasionally and send me stuff often. Send me like things to eat often. Michael Kinslinger and Bill Horner write to TK and family. May the year ahead be filled with all kinds of wonderful possibilities and whoppers for you. They sent me a Burger King gift card.
Ooh, look at that.
I don't know how much it is for. I don't know.
$13.72?
Huh?
Is it valued for $13.72? We
No,
hope?
I don't know.
Don't use it in the district.
I don't know what
No,
they.
you got to
but-
maximize that. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I can do it. I can use it, and it's a minimum of $15. So even when they try to cheat me at the Burger King on Connecticut Avenue, even when they try to cheat me, I'm going to be able to make it.
Do you have strong opinions on the Burger King fries?
No, I've always thought that the best fries, honestly, were the McDonald's fries, and I think that's because they use sugar on them.
Probably, yeah.
But no, I don't.
Do you ever do the trick where you ask for the fries with no salt so you try and get them fresh out of the fryer?
Oh no,
Oh, you
I didn't
know
know
that?
about that.
Yeah, that's a good.
No, the Burger King ones, some people think they're a little too starchy. And by some people, I mean
You.
my child itself.
Yeah. Okay. I got this note. Who are the people that normally or in the past have sent us beautiful wood things, like pen holders or stuff like that?
Yeah.
Aren't they the Minkowskis? Isn't it something like Minkowski? I apologize if I've gotten this wrong. And aren't they either from Michigan or Wisconsin? And haven't they been very nice to us? You're giving me that look that you don't know.
I don't remember. It sounds
Okay.
familiar, so I'll
This
agree
is
with
a
you,
different
yes.
person. This is from Zach Evans in Franklin, Tennessee. Despite the bleak tomato harvest at your house this past summer, I thought it would be nice to send you a handcrafted cutting board that I make as a hobby for any future fruits or vegetables that may need sliced, diced, or cut. I've been a fan of the show back to the ESPN Zone days, where I once met you in person along with Dan the Duke Davis. I brought my copy of I'm Back for More Cash for you to sign, which you were happy to autograph for me. I'm hoping to be named the I'm Back for More Cash hobby woodworker. That's easy. Of the Tony Kornheiser Show, as I try to use as much reclaimed wood in my projects as possible. For example, the wood I used in your cutting board was salvaged from the burn pile of another woodworker, maple, offcuts from a wood slab vendor, walnut, and an antique desk that was about to be thrown away, mahogany. The only new wood in this cutting board is the black hewed ebony, which I purchased with a coupon through a local retailer to test out working with this species. I don't sell the cutting boards I make. I only use them for gifts, and should the wood or coloring not work with the decor of the house in D.C., please feel free to relocate it to Delaware, give it to Michael or Liz, or add it to the prize closet for March Madness. From my hands to your home, I hope that this gift is well used and well loved. You see, something as simple as a cutting board will provide blessings to all that share a meal with you in the home that you are making. The care and tenderness that goes into its crafting is mirrored in the care and tenderness that goes into a shared meal. May it bear witness to many years of love, laughter, and shared experiences between your family and those you love. Thank you for the laughter and entertainment. I've shared the joys of your show with my wife and 4 kids, most of whom tolerate it and my constant references to it. Zach Evans, 8 Kitchen Outlets, Ontario High School, Mansfield, Ohio, home of the Onorama Yearbook. Once flew on a Southwest airplane with former President Al Gore about a month after he lost 2000 election. Talk about a downgrade. And a 13-pound Havachon, which I guess is a dog. And he enclosed cutting board care instructions. It's beautiful.
It really is.
And by the way, that paragraph about from my hands to your home, that's as beautiful a piece of writing as I've had sent to me in a long time. This is, I wish you were all watching on News Channel 8. Isn't it beautiful?
There's
so
just-
many different kinds of
Yeah,
wood.
there's a beautiful change of the pattern with the colors in the wood.
It's just, thank you.
You're going to have to take care of that. You're going to have to...
Well, you'll tell me.
Okay, I have a cutting board mineral solution for you.
Okay, so we'll do that. So that's lovely. On an odd level,
It's a
just
charcuterie board.
a quick oddity. As you know, well, you don't know, but I'm going to tell you in a second. I was eliminated in the club championships on Friday, eliminated soundly. And on Saturday, I went out with Darrell Clark to Needwood, which is a public golf course in Durwood, Maryland, which is a lot closer to me than I thought. Not way up 270, not almost to Frederick, just by Shady Grove Road. It's not that far. It's in Gaithersburg. A better course than I had been led to believe it would be. I had fun. A bunch of reachable par 4s for me from the Golds. Before I go to tee off, I'm standing at the area, and we ended up playing with a father and son. Mark was the dad, and the son was Chris. Very pleasant. I think they knew who I was because Chris kept asking me, do you think I'm safe with Buffalo minus 5.5? So I thought they knew who I was.
Evidently not, though.
It turned out it didn't work out that way.
Right.
I said to him, look, Miami's got incentive. I think Buffalo's better, but Miami's got it. And in any case, as we're getting ready to tee off, who should come walking down? And I go, I guess they'll let anybody play here. Is Neville. Neville. Neville comes down in a red shirt and a pair of plaid shorts, and he's ready to play. And he says, what are you doing here? I said, well, I got eliminated, and the course is locked up for the rest of the tournament.
At any point during the round, did he hit into you?
He was right behind us. He was in the group behind us. No, they didn't hit
Just
into
kind of
us.
pushing you along?
No, they didn't hit into us, but it was lovely, just wonderful to see Neville. I know Neville listens, so he'll hear this. So let me get to my own golf experience. As I told you, I feared that I would be eliminated in the quickest possible way, 10 and 8. I would lose the first 10 holes, right? And I would not be able to recover, and the match would be over, 10 and 8. I started out. I lost the first 4 holes. I doubled. Look, I just want to tell you this. I bladed, with the exception of one shot on number 9, a chip shot from behind the green. After I bladed the first chip on my 3rd shot, I went behind the green. I'm sorry, on my 4th shot, I bladed the chip. On my 5th shot, from about 10 yards off the green, I chipped it in, and I won the hole. I won 10. 9, rather. I won 9. Anyway, I lost the first 4 holes. I doubled the first 4 holes. Doubled them. Lost them all. I doubled the 5th hole, but so did he. Matt Sullivan, a very nice guy. He deserved to win. I deserved to lose. If I played well, I could have won, maybe. But if he played well, he would have won. But I deserved to lose. I'm down 4 after 4. And I'm thinking, my God, it's going to be 10 and 8. You're looking at me.
No, I'm just going to say you have to describe the conditions because people were not here on Friday. They don't know how cold it was. They don't know about the
Chilly,
wind.
windy.
I would not give anyone a putt inside of a foot.
But I will tell you, Michael, that on the first hole, after a very, very bad drive, I got in position on my 2nd shot. I was about 60 yards out, 50, 60 yards out. I took out a gap wedge. I bladed it way behind the green. I got on the green in 4 and 2 putted. I was this is what, every time you told me, and you were right, get in position so your 3rd shot is a wedge and you can have a par putt and you'll do fine. And I was in position on almost every hole. Sometimes I would blade them, or sometimes I'd hit them short into the sand or into the water on number 2. Into the water. Nobody hits it in the water on 2. Into the water on 2, then bladed the 4th shot. It just awful. I actually double bogeyed the first 5 holes. And Matt double bogeyed number 5 too. So after 5, I was down 4. After 6, I played okay. I won 6.
Roadrunner.
There we go.
7, my 3rd shot, my 2nd shot on 7, I hit into the trap on the left. My 3rd shot, I hit the ball and not the sand. Hit it past the shack. Hit it like 80 yards in the air, past the shack. Like ridiculous. Couldn't get on. So I lost that hole. I won 9. I lost 7. I'm down 4 again. I won 8. 8 was right into the wind. It's a par 3. It was playing 190. I took out driver. I wasn't even the slightest bit embarrassed. I hit it like 12 feet past the hole. And I parred that hole and won that hole. And then on 9, I chipped in. So I'm only down 2 going into the back. I'm feeling pretty good now because I can't be worse. I cannot be worse. I'm boring everyone. No one knows.
Could you go back to the first 4 holes?
Yeah.
Okay. It's doubles in the first 4, right?
Doubles
you
on
won
the first 5.
Oh, but you won 5.
I didn't win it.
Okay.
I tied it.
Split it, yeah.
I tied it. I lost 10. Because I lost 10, I hit a good drive. I hit a 2nd shot into the trap. I hit a 3rd shot over the green. The pin was up high. I got onto the green and rolled 35 feet past. So I doubled that hole and I lost that. Then I tied 11, 12, and 13. So I'm down 3 going into 14, and I'm going to make the tunnel. Like, I now know I'm going to make the tunnel. I'm pretty happy. I win 14 with a bogey. I'm down 2, and I go into the tunnel for 15, 16, 17, and 18. 15 is my favorite hole on the course. I usually do very well. Not this time. On my second
happened?
shot,
15's your favorite hole because you can cut off early and go up to the shack.
that's right. Yeah, I can quit the rep. 15, I hit my second shot into a trap on the right, and then I was done. And then 16, Matt put it in dry territory. That's a water hole, 16. Matt was dry, not in a good spot, but Matt was dry. I teed off, went into the water, shook his hand. Lost 4 and 2. I was not...
It was better than you thought you would
It was
do.
better than I thought I would do. I played really, really poorly on one specific area. The rest of it wasn't all that bad. But he was a very nice guy. He's got 3 kids. They all play hockey. I think one of them goes to Gonzaga. So maybe he knows Matthew Wilbon at this point. I had a really good time.
So did you enjoy the internal ups and downs as you were going through
Yes.
the round? Did you enjoy
Yes.
how your body was responding to the good and the bad? Did you come up with a new game plan if certain shots weren't working out? Or did you just hit
What,
the note?
what game plan could I have if I'm 40 yards and in and I can't hit that shot? I bladed every time. Even though I went to the range specifically to hit that shot, and I hit it every time on the range.
Looked great on the range, right?
I'm all range. I'm an all range player. You would have
You're a
not been proud of me.
bullpen pitcher.
You would not have been proud of me. Yes, I'm a bullpen pitcher.
I'm proud that you actually went through this because I think
I was happy.
the great thing about golf is it lets somebody at your age still compete, and this
Yeah.
is
And I was
the
playing
point of
for the
having
Whites.
flights. This is the point of why we have handicaps, but you have not. You know, you're not going to go play pickup basketball again.
No. I was playing for the Whites, and it's exceedingly hard for me to get to the green in 2 or in 3 on any of those. But I did on number 12. I got on in 3. I was pretty happy about that. You know, that's a par 5. Glad I played. I didn't know there was a dinner the night before. I didn't know. I didn't go, so I didn't know. I didn't know there was a charge to play in the tournament, and apparently that includes the dinner. So
Well,
that's a
you'll
lot of
call up
money.
and challenge the charge.
No, I won't. I mean, I just didn't know there was the dinner.
Well, you'll say I didn't know, so I think you should
No,
sort of put
no
a
one
box
would.
together for me, so I have something to
That would be nice
Right,
if they
yeah.
gave me a box of
to find to the ice cream. Maybe.
Yeah, the chocolate ice cream. That would be nice. That's such a good suggestion. I hadn't thought of that. Hadn't thought of that. All right, we'll take a break. Michael Wilbon when we return.
Yes.
I'm Tony Kornheiser.
This is the Tony Kornheiser Show.
We begin with
This is sent to us by the great Robert Berg, who writes, "The Diane Kruger effect is back. It's been almost 4 years since the last DKE album dropped. During that interregnum, the world has become an utter hellscape. Is it our fault? To be perfectly honest, some days it is hard to find reasons for answering no to that question. However, we are bestowing the best remedy upon the world we could conjure. Our second album, New Life Smell, 12 Songs to a Bettering You, will be released on November 1st. These MP3s are the perfect stocking stuffer for that someone in your life for whom you must buy a gift that seems like you're trying to get something cool that you know for sure will leave them dissatisfied." So wonderful. This song is called Experiments in Sound, and it plays in Michael Wilbon. And for the 3rd week in a row in the NFL season, the early slate of games was tremendous. Simply tremendous. Even your team, the Chicago Bears, wearing fabulous helmets. Like, looked like the Michigan helmet, but the stripes were in orange, the orange that the Bears wear. Even your team won late. It's the Sunday night game again stunk, but the early games were all good. What do you make of this so far?
Nothing. I don't, you know, I know people like to sort of go crazy and draw conclusions because they're just orgasmic over the NFL. They're great games. The games are electrifying.
They are.
They are. They're just, I don't make anything. They're, you know, the teams are, a lot of the teams are fairly even. There's a group of top teams, we think. We don't know whether it's really going to include Tampa or not based on their injuries and Brady's interest level and whether it's maintained for an entire season. But there's some other teams. Some teams have been overstated. I picked, in my confidence pool, I picked Miami to beat Buffalo.
Yeah, you didn't think that was an upset.
No, it's not an upset. I don't care about what Vegas is, and I don't look at the games that way. I pick the games based on who I think is the better team and who's going to win. And because it's a confidence pool, it's your confidence level. So I picked Miami with about a 7 or 8 point confidence, not 8 point spread.
Right.
8 point confidence. So I picked that game. I also, at 10 o'clock yesterday morning when I flew back in from Chicago, I had Indianapolis beating Kansas City.
You're kidding. That would be the
No.
one I would never have. Because you're the first guy to say Matt Ryan's done.
He is done. It's a game, Tony. We're not talking about a series. We're talking about football. We're talking about the ability to win a game. And Indianapolis, as in 3 weeks ago, was being picked by some people to make a deep run in the playoffs.
That's right.
So if people think they're that good, then they can beat Kansas City for a game. Dynasty of one. So at 10 o'clock, I had Kansas City losing to Indianapolis, and then at noon, I kind of sit and I ponder over stuff, and I go, is there something I really want to change? And I changed it. I changed it to pick Kansas City with, I don't know, again, a 7 or 8 point confidence level, somewhere midway. And so I finished second in the pool to my own brother, so I'm in a very angry mood this morning. Well, because even if I think Don and I have the same winner tonight, whoever that is, so I can't beat him.
Giants in Dallas.
All because I didn't pick
Indianapolis.
Indianapolis, didn't stay with it yet.
The Buffalo, well, a lot of the games ended in a spectacular way.
They were.
The Buffalo game had two different endings. Buffalo's going to win that game. Josh Allen short arms a pass to an open guy in the end zone. Josh Allen, a dependable passer, short arms a pass and gets down on his knees afterwards. He's so upset. And then they couldn't get the last play off. They couldn't do that. I mean, that game, Tua looked good. Again, there's this interesting thing, Mike, that the NFLPA is upset that Tua was let out of the concussion protocol and back into the game that quickly. I don't know what to make of that. That's an interesting story, isn't it?
Well, they said that it was a back injury. The doctors in real time that it was a back thing, and that's why he stumbled like that. There wasn't. I trust the doctors. I don't care what the PA has to say about that.
Right.
Sorry.
Right.
I don't.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. There were you mentioned Tampa Bay and Tom Brady's interest level. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers have played 3 games. In none of those 3 games have they looked particularly good.
No.
In none of those 3 games have they scored a bunch of points. But 45-year-old Tom Brady with 1:30 left took him down the field at the end and scored a touchdown.
Yeah.
And I was going back and forth with Jeff Leonardo, my friend Jeff, and I said, it looks like he's done. And then I said, oops, I may have been a bit premature. Now, it's a terrible circumstance where you get a delay and you're 2 points.
You can't get a delay.
Yeah, I don't know how you can't.
These people, these coaches sleep in their offices 4 nights a week.
Can't do it.
And you get a delay?
No, that's absolutely awful. You can't do it. And the other things that surprised me, I had written down as a question for you, how awful are Minnesota and Washington? And then I write down, oh no, Cousins delivers.
I don't think Minnesota's awful. I think Minnesota can win a division.
Wow.
Washington's awful.
Oh, awful.
But I don't think Minnesota's awful. And even though Detroit is 1 and 2, I don't think they're awful. They can score. I mean, they were up in that game.
Yes.
They have a 10-point lead in that game at one time.
I don't know if it was 10, but they score in every single quarter and they run.
Man. They're exciting to watch.
They're much better than I ever thought they would be.
They're exciting to watch, at least now. Now you can get beat down over time, and all of a sudden you lose that enthusiasm, and that has to be involved in that offense, and we don't know if they can sustain that. But no, the Vikings aren't awful. The Vikings have players.
I would say that the most surprising result to me was, unlike you, was Indianapolis beating Kansas City. But the second most surprising result, and you have to temper it because Justin Herbert is not 100%. But Jacksonville scored an awful lot of points.
Yeah,
and Trevor Lawrence looked awfully good, and it makes you think, it makes you step back and have this comment. Doug Peterson must know what he's doing. He won with Carson Wentz and Nick Foles, and now he's got this kid, and this kid looks good. Right, Mike? He must know.
Yeah, and yes, he's being, guys, when they're coached, look better because they're being coached. We didn't know what Urban Meyer was doing last year.
You're right.
That's why you don't hire him and put him in that situation. And I was not a guy who thought that Urban Meyer was going to absolutely automatically fail because he was a college guy. I thought he might be the exception. That he might be more like Jimmy, and he wasn't anything like Jimmy Johnson. But this guy knows how to coach. Period. And so, I didn't dwell on the Jacksonville game. I did pick the Chargers, and that coach he's really good at some things. I think he's a fool. What is Brandon? What's his name?
Staley.
He's a fool.
He goes
He's
on
got a
fourth
guy
all
who
the
got,
time.
is wearing a rib bag. He's got that guy in there down like 38-14 at the end of the game.
I agree.
What
I
are you
don't get
doing?
it. I don't get it.
What are you doing,
I
dude?
don't get it. Just because he took the shot and he didn't feel the pain.
I think he's a raging egomaniac.
I also feel that way, that was absolutely insane.
Yeah.
I would have even said to him, and I wrote this to you, are you sure you want to take the shot to play Jacksonville? Shouldn't we beat Jacksonville anyway? Well, I miscalculated on that.
I wouldn't have thought that.
No?
I don't think they're that good. Again, Tony, all these teams, all of them, most of them can play. Again, Detroit can beat you. They can. The Bears are 2-1, and they're not any good. They have no offensive line. We don't know if Fields can even play. But they ran for 300 yards yesterday. Let me say it again, 300 yards. The Bears did. I think it was 270 something, 287. The last time they did that, a guy carrying the ball for them was named Walter Payton.
Yeah, it's a long time ago.
All right, so they got two runners, and I hope that Montgomery, our primary running back, is not injured, but we got another guy nobody even knows. From in Washington D.C., they don't know who Khalil Herbert is. I know who he is, but the Bears can run the ball. Their teams have stuff. Everybody's got a little something. Maybe with the exception of the Washington football team.
Yeah.
Maybe they have some. They got two receivers.
Cincinnati
They got
came
receivers
back.
I'd like to have. They just have a quarterback who is, as you know, I've thought from day one, one of the more overrated players in the league today.
Cincinnati, Tennessee, they won. Raiders did not. Raiders are 0-3, and it leads to this question. This guy, Josh McDaniels, name me one guy that Bill Belichick has put into a coaching position other than Bill Belichick who's done well. Name me one.
Well, you could look at the coach of Tennessee. He was not his lieutenant.
No,
as the
he
coach
was not.
Played for him.
Right, he played for him.
Yeah, I'm not gonna say that Bill Belichick had no impact on him in his life and as a coach, but I just love it that McDaniel looks like a clown.
He does.
Like that. That makes me happy.
He does so far. Do you want to describe Northwestern?
No,
No,
we've fallen and we can't get up.
yeah.
We have 3 straight losses in the softest part of your schedule. We can't beat Duke, Southern Illinois. We should have lost to like a dental school the previous week. And then I was at the Miami Ohio game Saturday. I was there.
Oh, you went?
I was there because I treated it. I needed to have meetings with people. We're building a new stadium in Evanston, Tony. We're building a college football stadium, which will change the way college football stadiums are built. I mean, you saw our field house.
Beautiful.
Yeah. Well, is still. You get passed over time, but we're not surpassed yet. And we're doing that with a football stadium. And there's some elements that I'm involved in as you try to get this thing done. And at a university, and I'm a trustee, and so there are meetings, there are things you have to do. And I just said, you know what? Let me just do these things because these people are at this game, and I can see them all. It was a night game. And like, what the hell? I'm not going back till Sunday. We'll play. We'll win a close game. I'll be annoyed. But we'll win a 17-14 game, and that's that. Yeah, well, we lost a 17-14 game to Miami, Ohio. And we've fallen and we can't get up. And, we got the Big Ten portion of the schedule resumes. I think it resumes with, like, Penn State. So I'm like, okay, we got Ohio State. Maryland played a great
Yes, they did against Michigan.
effort against Michigan, a game which I watched a lot. We have Maryland here in a few weeks. I may not go to another game. I'm
Did you
thoroughly,
sit in the
like,
stands for the after the game and be angry?
No, that
Okay.
was the Duke game. That was coming off of the win over Nebraska.
Okay, just want to
No,
make sure.
I was gone. I was out. I'm like, okay, not gonna let the traffic hit me.
Okay.
I'm going back to Chicago on a Saturday night. I'm out of here. And I listened to the end of the game on the radio. So no, we have fallen. We can't get up, and it's just not going to be this. I didn't think this was going to be one of our seasons where we pick up and can get to a conference championship game like we've done 2 out of the last 4 years. I always thought that was going to be next year. And God, now I'm hoping it can be next year, really. Because it ain't going to be this year.
All right. All right, I'll see you later.
All right, John.
Michael Wilbon, boys and girls. We will take a break. Richard Justice will join us. I'm Tony Kornheiser.
You're listening to The Tony Kornheiser Show. The Tony Kornheiser Show.
This is the Indochino ad. Finding the perfect suit is impossible, but finding a suit that's perfect for you is simple thanks to Indochino. Choose your favorite fabric, customize every detail to find the look that's perfect for you. Submit your measurements online, rope in a yardstick, or get measured in store for a custom made for you fit at an incredible price. And with their fall collection featuring new colors unknown to the universe before, and premium fabrics, you'll be in style all season long. Now, Nigel, you have bought 3 suits,
Yes,
and you've liked them.
I've loved them. And you've seen me in action with those suits, and it's tough to make me look good, and those suits do
Oh,
as
they
good a job as you
They
can.
do. Very rat package. Michael, you.
I got big news.
Yes.
Michael, 1 week ago, I ordered a Harrogate. This is a dark charcoal premium suit. I didn't go crazy with any of the lapels.
Right.
This is for a big event that I have coming up, and the shipping date should arrive pretty soon. But I did not use rope and a yardstick. I used
Probably wise.
measuring tape and
Right.
a disgruntled wife.
Every Indochino suit is made just for you. It's a tailored experience at a great price. Shop their made-for-you suits starting at just $449 and premium fitted shirts starting at just $89. You can fine-tune every detail, lapels, linings, monograms, and more. Did you get monograms?
I just went with the simple MPK, and I went with that olive interior.
That's wonderful. Get a premium
Just a
personalized
pen pocket,
wardrobe
just to sign autographs.
without spending a fortune. Design your perfect suit with Indochino. To get $50 off any purchase of $399 or more, use the promo code TonyK at Indochino.com. That's INDOCHINO.com, promo code TonyK. Did you use the code?
I did, and when that discount was applied, very happy customer.
Very
Yeah.
nice.
Use the code, people.
You're listening to the Tony Kornheiser Show.
This again is the Diane Kruger effect. This song is called Bullet Train, and Robert Bird writes, why? Because we found this sweet Shinkansen drop and built a song around it. That's just how the DKE rolls. I asked Jason if we could build a song around the sound my electric toothbrush makes when the battery is low, but the 23 seconds of silence that followed my request suggested we were going to go in another direction. This is called Bullet Train. It plays in Richard Justice. We're going to talk. I'm sure you did the same thing. I tuned in the baseball game last night instead of the football game, and every time, the first 3 times anyway, that Aaron Judge got up, I made sure to watch because it's so exciting, and particularly in Yankee Stadium where everybody stands when he gets up. Everybody stands. They all want him to hit 61. He hasn't hit it. It's 5 or 6 games now which he's gone without a home run. I assume he's going to hit 61 and 62, but maybe I'm wrong. What do you think?
No, I think he's going to. And I do. I agree with you. I liked on Saturday the cut-ins that ESPN and ABC did showing the at-bats. I'm especially interested, and I'm sure you are too, in the announcers, how Michael Kay will handle it, how John Sterling and Susan Wallman will handle it. That's some of the best parts of it, is going back and watching it. Look, because of who he is, because he's 30 years old, he's approaching free agency, and he is the most, I can't say I've spent a bunch of time around him, but in the playoffs a couple of years ago when he was really struggling, I have never seen a person handle it better than that kid did. And so he's one of the ones you root for, and you just look at him. Doesn't he look like a New York Yankee? That guy, when he stands there in the on-deck circle, 6'7", 280 pounds, you go, whoa, That's a Yankee right there. So yeah, I do, and he's going to get it. I think they have 3 in Toronto, then I think they finish at home with the Texas Rangers. So surely he'll get it there. But he'll get it. It's going to be a terrific moment. I think they only have 3 home games left, so maybe he'll get it in one of those. That would be perfect.
He's going to get money from the Yankees, right? You don't believe there's any chance he'd go somewhere else, do you?
Kenny Rosenthal wrote a great piece in The Athletic on what can Aaron Judge learn from Albert Pujols.
Okay.
It's sort of bittersweet to see Albert back in that uniform. And maybe they needed a divorce in 2011 because of the length of the contract the Angels were offering Albert. But don't ever forget, if you go somewhere else, all the equity that you have built up, you lose it. And also, the Yankees aren't hurting from any. I just can't imagine. But there is a legitimate discussion to be had about how many years, average annual salary, and all of that to be had. He was rankled that Brian Cashman leaked that they had offered him, I think it was 7 years, $213 million or something like that. And you go from there, 8 years, 250. I mean, he's not going to get $400 million because he is 30 years old. He's entering his age 31 season. On the other hand, I would say to the Yankees, what's the value? What's the damage done to your franchise by losing him? Obviously, the Yankees are the Mississippi River. They roll on, but you want him. He's one of the special people. He's one of yours. Yeah, he's going to get it, and I can't imagine they won't sign him. And also, Aaron Judge is a very smart person. Where's your greatest earning power? Of course it's in New York City. Of course it's in New York City. And where are you most beloved? New York City. People don't leave the Yankees, and I can't imagine he's going to.
This is the point that I would make. The Yankees keep who they want, and people want to be with the Yankees. And when you say, what is the value of losing someone like that? Look at the Washington Nationals.
Oh, boy.
Look what they have lost in less than 3 calendar years since winning the World Series. All their greats either are gone or cannot play, like Steven Strasburg.
Right.
Cannot play. They've lost all. And it is reflected in the fewer amount of people in the stands and the less interest, except for people like me that are diehards. But Richard, they lost all.
Yeah, and I don't know what happens now. They're going to have to get a new ownership. I would think they're going to get a new front office. But like when these decisions were coming down when Bryce Harper was approaching it, and Anthony Rendon and all the others, Max, and you have a big board in your office. Okay, what are we going to be in 2021, 2022, right down the line? You can't. But Rendon and Harper and Trey Turner and Max Scherzer, those are not players you can replace. You cannot replace those players. You don't have that kind of talent. And now your farm system is not very good. I mean, they have some 18 and 20-year-olds that everyone says are going to be good players.
Maybe.
But the other side for the Nationals is this. Payrolls are cyclical, and they come and go. And you have to convince your ownership, look, Bryce Harper is going to get an insane amount of money. But again, as with Judge, what's the cost of losing him? What's the cost to our franchise? Anthony Rendon, you can say he's been hurt with the Angels and all that. That doesn't matter. What you're looking at is we just won a World Series, and we can win. We're going to have a window here to win again. You can't project that Strasburg is going to get hurt. You can't. I don't know that there didn't seem to be a plan other than screw him. We're not going to give him that amount of money.
I agree with that. It's wrong. Let me get back to Judge for a second, and let me tell you what Kirkjian said to me the other week. He can't get to 73. It's not going to be a record. 73 is the record. In my mind, and I differ from Tim, in my mind, if he gets to 62, it's the only clean 62 we've ever had.
Right.
But that's in my mind. The fact that he can't get to 73, does that diminish what he's doing?
No, because I think 60 to generations of fans, especially you and I, 60 is a magic number. I thought about this. When Maris and Mantle had that chase in 61, it had been 34 years since Ruth had hit 60. When McGuire and Sosa did it in 98, it had been 37 years. So you're going into 98, you're 70 years and only 2 people have done it. Since then, 24 years since '98, it's been done 6 times. So that takes away a little something of it. And again, the record book has been tarnished.
Yeah.
But again, I think I hate it that the tarnishing of the record book takes anything away from this guy. I mean, I think baseball is serious about testing for steroids. I don't think there's any suspicion with this guy at all. And he's just generally one of those guys that you root for. I mean, I can't imagine people across the country aren't saying, hey, that's pretty cool. I like that guy.
I will say this because of age, that 60, 61, 62 is a bigger number to me and probably to you, Richie, than 700. But Pujols' accomplishment is
Right.
astonishing. There's only 3 guys that have ever done this. That's all there are. And he just did it with an August and September that are just, they're anomalies in his last 5 years. He couldn't even get the bat around with the Angels and the Dodgers for a little while there. What do you make of this?
It's the most shocking thing I've ever seen. I know him pretty well, and I hated to watch him go to first base on a walk because it looked like every step was painful. And if you saw him try to run the bases, you would think, oh my God, this guy's headed for joint replacement, multiple joint replacements. He was in pain. And what this has done is remind us of who Albert Pujols was. And I've had Hall of Famers tell me, you go look at his first 10 years in St. Louis, best 10 years any player's ever had. 10 years he averaged 40 homers, 40 doubles, and 120 RBIs. Think of that. I mean, and he controlled at bats, he controlled situations. What's cool now is Albert seems to be enjoying the ride. I think he appreciates who Albert Pujols is. In Houston, he hit the famous home run in the 2005 playoffs. He's told me that people, when he's in a restaurant in Houston, he obviously doesn't get back here much anymore, but people will come up to him and go, excuse me, and they want to tell him where they were and what they were doing, like a catastrophic news event.
Right.
When he hit the home run, he should always tell him, like, hey, you do remember you won the series, right? we didn't win the series, you did. But that's what he meant to people, and that's what he's meant to people around the game. And it could not, if he's really quitting, and he's a pretty stubborn person. If he says he is, he probably is. But it could not be sweeter for one of the great players that ever walked the face of the earth.
Is he well liked by other players?
I think he was unapproachable in those 10 years in St. Louis.
Right.
Something seemed to click when he went to the Angels, that he just said, okay, I know what you guys want, I'm going to give it to you. And, like, I would go up to him and go, a minute, and he would, like, okay, I got to do it now, And then St. Louis, he was much less approachable. I don't know that he was loved. He's beloved now, and he was always beloved in that clubhouse. The massive, the people like Wainwright and Molina that know him the best will tell you they've never seen anybody work like this guy works, how he at his craft. You would go in there, Tony, at 3:30 or 4 in the afternoon, and he would be coming out of the indoor batting cage, covered, drenched in sweat, working on his swing, to try to get it to a place he felt good. He cared so much, and he cared about all the right things, and he carried that team. I wonder, the Cardinals offered him. It was 7 years. There's some deferred money and all that. I wonder if they've had any second thoughts about it. They've won a World Series, but they've been to the playoffs a bunch of times since they left. Maybe it was just you needed that divorce to appreciate what he meant to the franchise, and the fact that he went to the Dodgers and rediscovered his love for the game, and then came back. And you play in St. Louis, it's a big deal. Every game is a big deal in St. Louis. He didn't have that with the Angels.
Yeah, it's a lovely story. I had those great fears that he'll end up like Willie Mays at the end, but no.
Right.
August and September have been great. They've just been absolutely great. I'll get you out of here on this. La Russa will not manage the rest of this year. Do you think he will come back and manage next year?
Normally, the correct answer is there's no way. It just didn't work out. And I love the guy, and he's a Hall of Famer. He changed the game, the way it's managed and all that. He checked every box. And so in a normal situation, you say, it just didn't work out. It's time for you to go into retirement. The X factor is his relationship with Jerry Reinsdorf.
Right.
They are close friends. There's a lunch group in Scottsdale with this is one of the lunch groups Wilbon is not part of, but it's Reinsdorf and Bud Selig and Bob Uecker, and Tony's part of that. So that's the part. Like, if I don't know that Jerry's capable of having that conversation with Tony, but I do think Tony's obviously a smart guy, but the hardest thing to do is to scout yourself, and he's got so much pride. To walk away like this would be walk away as a failure, and that's not in his makeup. If I had to guess, I guess he won't be back, but I don't know how that plays out given the dynamic of the personal relationships involved.
Thank you, Richie. Talk soon.
Thanks, Tony.
Richard Justice, boys and girls. We will take a break. We will have email and jingle when we return. I'm Tony Kornheiser.
You're listening to The Tony Kornheiser Show.
This is the Simply Safe ad. The numbers don't lie. In the last decade, over 4 million people have chosen Simply Safe Home Security to protect their home. You don't earn the trust of that many people without doing something right. At Simply Safe, your safety is the only thing that matters. They protect you with cutting-edge security technology powered by 24/7 professional monitoring agents who always have your back. With 24/7 professional monitoring, Simply Safe's agent call you the moment a threat is detected and dispatch police or first responders in an emergency, even if you're not home or can't be reached. Simply Safe blankets your home in protection with advanced sensors for every room, window, and door, HD security cameras for inside and outside your home, smarter ways to detect motion that only alerts you when a threat is real, and even hazard sensors that instantly detect fires, floods, and other threats to your home. The monitoring experts use proprietary advanced response technology to visually confirm when a break-in is real so you can get the highest priority police dispatch. Customize the perfect system for your home in just a few minutes at simplysafe.com/Tony. Go today and claim a free indoor security camera plus 20% off with interactive monitoring. Go to Simply Safe, it's SIMPLI. Go to simplysafe.com/Tony. There's no safe like Simply Safe. And that's good luck.
You're listening to The Tony Kornheiser Show.
Here comes Tony's mailbag. Got your emails, faxes, and your notes. Here comes Tony's mailbag. Gonna read some for all of you fools. But don't send in faxes.
Thank you, Jason Fuse. Glad you want to do the Bethesda Bagel ad. It's a good day.
Yes, it's a very good day. Bethesda Bagels, we love them. You will as well. All you need to do is go to BethesdaBagels.com for the location in the DC area nearest you. Then pop on in, and you'll be thrilled, especially if you get the bagel sandwiches like we got today.
That'll just about do it for us today. Before we get to the mailbag, let me just say, this is probably from a movie, and I don't know which movie.
Oh, yes, sorry.
Okay, people, listen up. The people upstairs have handed us this one, and we got to come through. We got to find a way to make this fit into the hole for this using nothing but that. I was going to say something like 0 Dark 30, but I don't know.
Apollo 13.
Okay.
When they're going to fit the O2 thing into the other O2 thing, you just spill a bunch of stuff on the table.
It's great. It's just great. Thanks to today's guests, Michael Wilbon, Richard Justice. Thanks to today's sponsors, Simply Safe and Indochino. Remember, you can listen to us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Play, and Odyssey. Get the show through Apple Podcasts. Please leave us a review. This is about Flightline. That's that horse that we talked about.
Which, by the way,
Malay sent us the drawing of, and that Flatter said he knew.
Somebody sent an email with a link to an article that said after one of the races, the Queen called to check on the horse. Like this, so this is months and months ago. That she was.
Oh, I would hope so. It wasn't yesterday.
It was not yesterday.
She's no longer signing.
She's not, but apparently that this horse had caught her eye as well.
From Al Ruggles in Lexington, Kentucky. Being in the horse industry myself, I enjoyed the discussion of Flightline the other day and comments from Andy Beyer via Nigel and Ron Flatter. Here's some additional information about this special horse. He's Kentucky bred, was purchased at the 2019 Fasig-Tipton yearling sale in Lexington, Kentucky for $1 million and is by leading sire Tappan. It is true he did not He did not start until April of his 3-year-old year and therefore would not have been prepared at that time to compete in the Triple Crown races. He is lightly raced, winning all 5 of his starts by an average of 12 lengths, which is over 2 seconds, an eternity in horse racing. His betting odds have always been less than even money. He is next scheduled to compete in the $6 million Breeders' Cup Classic on Saturday, November 5th at Keeneland Racecourse in Lexington. Post time is 5:40. I will be there and expect this will be one of the most anticipated races in recent memory. Isn't that nice to know?
It is very nice.
We really, you know what? We ought to call Andy, because we always call Andy before the Breeders' Cup and let him talk about Flightline.
That would be nice, yeah.
Yeah.
Should do that.
From Matt Wine in Pittsburgh, I went to the Walgreens in Oakmont, the one my dad calls the good Walgreens, to get my booster last week. The woman in the pharmacy who gave me the shot told me that my shoulder would become sore at the injection site, which, come on, this is my 4th time through this spiel. What are we even doing out here? And then I should make sure to massage my arm and move it around so the vaccine makes its way to the rest of my body. I didn't have the heart to tell her that just isn't how blood works. Next time I'll wait until the CVS on Wilkins Avenue in Squirrel Hill has the vaccine. As we've established on this show, that's the good CVS. I think that's Howard Feynman's CVS, the CVS on Wilkins and Squirrel Hill.
Yes.
From Pam, signed wife of Bob, Rockville, Maryland. Pam, wife of Bob. Dear Mr. Tony, thanks so much for having Greg Garcia on and alerting me to his new show, Sprung. You've always championed Garcia's work, and it's well-deserved. A fan of My Name is Earl and Raising Hope, I was delighted to try Sprung. We just watched the last episode, thoroughly enjoyed it. Season finale, and I hope it's not the show's finale, had me breathless with laughter. The madcap pace, profound silliness, and real-world gravitas combined to make this one of the most enjoyable, perhaps the best take on lockdown life. Keep up the excellent work, and hats off to Greg Garcia. I may have to master the podcast world and listen to you regularly. Is there a second? Do we know?
It looks doubtful. Do you want me to read what he wrote me?
Yeah, what did Greg write?
He had a meeting with the people from Freevee, and so see what happens there. But he's got another project that he's excited to do. And as he wrote that, he said,
He's always got projects.
then he said, we were texting back and forth. He said, when I was voice texting you that first text, I was walking on the beach and looking up, and 18 naked people in their 70s were walking towards me. They parted like the Red Sea, and I went past. I think I went too far down the beach today.
This one comes from Tony Beeson with a picture. It says, I had the opportunity to meet the legendary DG this evening. Articulate, funny, David is a treasure, and it was a pleasure meeting him in person. And there's a picture of DG wearing an Izod shirt, a Lacoste shirt. It's amazing. I pass this.
Where and how?
You know. From Joe Checky in Dunedin, New Zealand, not Florida, New Zealand.
That's right.
In New Zealand, they call bingo housey. They also have professional housey callers. Instead of calling number 11, they say legs 11. 2 fat ladies, 88. Kelly's eye, number 1. Unlucky for some, 13. Clickety-clack, 66.
I like that.
Knowledge for life.
Clickety-clack.
Michael Murphy, Taylor, South Carolina. On the Thursday, August 18th show, you and Wilbon were at a loss as to what to call the massive dust storms that occasionally occur in the Phoenix area. I hope I can be of assistance. My wife is from the West Valley area of Phoenix, and her parents still live there. I personally have never experienced such a storm, but they certainly have. The proper term for a large dust storm with tornadic activity that you described is haboob. H-A-B-O-O-B. Haboob. The word is Arabic in origin, where it was used to describe storms in the Sahara. What do you think of that?
Did not know that. That's good to know.
From Seth in Columbus, Ohio, not Indiana or Georgia. This past Thursday, I had my wisdom teeth pulled. And as a result, I've been relegated to soft foods for the past couple of days. I've always loved Tillamook cheddar cheese, but I had no idea they made ice cream. That is until after listening to your show. After hearing that show, I immediately went to my local grocery, a Giant Eagle, and picked up a carton of their Oregon strawberry ice cream. And let me just say, it's awesome. It might even get the Mr. Tony seal of approval, as it does indeed have little bits of strawberries in it. Pictures attached for proof. Anyway, thanks to all that you and the gang do, and an added thanks for putting me on to Tillamook ice cream. You know, it helped me get through my wisdom teeth removal recovery. That's interesting, isn't it?
It's nice.
I'll do one more because it's very nice that we do this. This is Neil Tuck in Los Altos, California. And I want to get this out so I can show everybody.
This is
the
from a
picture.
new pile of email.
Yes,
This
a new
is
file.
the secondary pile.
Well, but it's, yeah. I don't get to all of them.
No.
Dear Grandpa, a little ways back, I was walking my golden doodle Fenway, 85 pounds, through nearby Stanford University. I stumbled upon a display that highlighted some of the recent senior award winners for the Stanford class of 2022. Imagine my delight when I saw the winner of the James W. Lyons Award for Service was none other than Brooke Forty. I said to Fenway, I know her. I was very excited to have my own David Aldrich moment until I thought to myself, she's a Stanford grad, Olympic medalist, award winner, headed off to the Peace Corps. And what do? I sit on a couch, drink beer, and listen to two bald men argue about sports on PTI. Congratulations, Pat, one of your best guests every time. See the award below. And it's the lovely Service Award.
That's great. That's fantastic.
Isn't that nice?
It really is great.
So wonderful. If you're out on your bike time, everyone, as always, do wear white.
And tell me, you brought 3 of your friends. Could you please introduce
Yes, there's George Parasol, Ringo Stone, and Paul McCharmley.
We begin with science.
All right, we'll see what podcast we do next. I think we'll actually do a House of the Dragon podcast on the Ringerverse by Chris Ryan, Mallory Rubin, and Joanna Robinson, called Talk the Thrones. This is recapping episode 6. So if you don't want spoiled on this show, don't listen.
Talk the Thrones. My name is Chris Ryan, and I am an editor at TheRinger.com. Joining me this week, as always, is Ringer senior staff writer Joanna Robinson, and someone who will never stand under a King's Landing window for as long as she lives, Mallory Rubin.
You are the challenge, Chris. You are the challenge.
It's great to see the two of you. It's great to see a new episode of House of the Dragon. It's what we're discussing this week. It's the Princess and the Queen. Funnily enough, the backup name for The Watch with me and Andy. We were going to go, it was either Princess and the Queen or The Watch. We couldn't decide.
Which is which, Chris? Which is which?
Yeah. This one was written by Sarah Hess. It was directed by your boy, Miguel Sapochnik, and it featured a 10-year time jump, which,
yeah,
you know, it's become kind of common in modern television to mess around with chronology, to jump ahead of things. I don't remember 10 years in any of my fave shows that have done this. And I certainly don't remember a big casting change or 2 or 3 or 5 or whatever after only 5 episodes, but that's what we got in the 6th episode of House of the Dragon. Gosh, this one was a doozy. And it was a doozy because not only what happens on screen, but just it was so dense. I'm so glad I'm here to talk about it with Mallory and Joe. Why don't we start with the big changes, Joanna? How about that?
Great.
What did you think of Emma Darcy as Rhaenyra and Olivia Cook as Alicent?
You and I had talked a little bit, Chris, about like how much we've loved Olivia Cook's other work, and so we were certain that we were going to love
Slow
her.
Horses Gang.
Yeah,
That's right.
Yeah.
Just
Mallory is a Slow Horses fan erasure here. Very tough.
I could never tell. Sorry.
So sorry.
I know on the Slow Horses group chat next time.
I know you have a constant Me, Earl, and the Dying Girl just like playing in a loop in the background all the time, right?
I enjoy that movie.
It's a great movie. Ready Player One. Okay, so anyway, Olivia Cook fan, definitely. Emma Darcy was a bit more of a question mark for me, but I just loved this introduction, the long walk and talk. Unlike
all the birth sounds were just elite.
Squelching, I think is what we got. Yeah. But I love Emma's take on Rhaenyra. I can see Millie Alcock in this performance, but also see what the 10 years have done to this woman, and I'm thrilled, honestly, by this change. How about you, Mel?
Loving the new cast. Had a great time in the first 5 episodes with our original cast, and I'm quite impressed with Emma and Olivia so far. Delighted by John McMillan as new Laenor. Like, it's cool to see all of the new cast members. The time jump is obviously something we'll chat about a lot today. I think that in some ways it's going to be quite jarring for people. In other ways, it worked a little bit better than I was anticipating. But in terms of the performers capturing the essence of the characters at this point in their arc, I thought that was a hit right away.
So Mal, we've known each other for 10 years.
Oh my God.
Plenty has
9, I think, but yeah.
Plenty has happened in those years. We haven't done anything as interesting as what the characters on this show have done. But one of the things that I was struck by was all of the things that we are to intuit have happened in the intervening years between these two episodes, because obviously some of the standout scenes from Princess and the Queen are those that involve the Princess and the Queen facing off. First with her being forced to, or at least, refusing to just have a midwife take the baby to Alicent, but she's going to walk herself all the way to the Queen's room, show the baby off. You've got that face off in the small council. There's a lot of proxy battles going on. But I think that for, regular Joes and Janes like myself, it might be kind of hard to understand, so they're just as mad at each other 10 years later than they were at the end of episode 5. Do you think that is the correct read, that there's just been no thawing, that things have just gotten progressively worse, and that Rhaenyra being with Harwin as a poorly kept secret has just exacerbated the problems between Rhaenyra and Alicent?
I would go a step further and say not only is the read that time has exacerbated and entrenched this divide, I would say that was the entire point of the first 5 episodes, to help us understand how that came to be such a deeply rooted and deeply felt division that impacted not only Rhaenyra and Alicent, but every single person in their family and orbit. And we chatted previously about the idea of starting with the Council of 101 AC as a prologue to this series, but those first 5 episodes were the prologue to this series. And so on the one hand, I would have loved to spend every single minute with those characters in this 10-year gap in between. I would have loved to welcome all of these new children and all of these new dragons to our screen directly.
You wanted the Richard Linklater's Boyhood version of House of the Dragon.
One of my favorite movies of all time, as you know. So honestly, yes, exactly. I like to grow up alongside the characters and watch the characters grow up themselves. But the thing that we had to understand, the one thing, is how these characters came to feel this way about each other. What history led them there. And so that's why we got those 5 episodes, to understand where Alicent and Rhaenyra are now.
Joe, the time jump. Yay or nay?
Yeah, I think if you had just started the show with this episode, I think Alicent especially is someone hard to root for in this episode. And I know that, book readers have their opinions of Alicent. And so I think to show her in, as a person who was pushed around by her father and all these other things to make her younger, to make them have a friendship in the first place that they lost, I think that was really smart to gain our sympathies before things get tougher. And I think also to root that misunderstanding between them, that initial rift, in Rhaenyra's sex life, and then to make Rhaenyra's sex life such an ongoing important part of what happens here and now. I think that was a clever link, because basically when we meet them in the book, it's just sort of like they were okay and then they hated each other and we don't know why. And so they had to invent a reason why, and I think this was a smart way to connect it with events we do know about.
Should I recap this episode?
Let's do it.
I don't really have a cool Midnight Manifest nickname for this. Maybe we could get one.
Christopher's C-word countdown. Every week you get a couple new utterances to...
I get one every week.
You got 2 this week, yeah.
This episode, you could call it Back to the Future. You could call the Midwife. Call it what you want. The new episode skips years ahead, and we join our regularly scheduled programming with Rhaenyra in labor. It is her 3rd son. I think I'm right on that one. This one is called Joffrey, and she is immediately summoned to intro the kid to the Queen, Alicent, who continues to flex green dress energy all these years into the future. Alicent has Kristen as her bodyguard, Viserys as her one-armed old-ass husband, and some serious attitude about Rhaenyra's son's hair and its relationship to the paternity of Joffrey. Back in her room, Rhaenyra exchanges some tender one-liners with Harwin Strong, the dude who broke up the brawl at Rhaenyra's wedding dinner. He is also obviously the bigger, stronger son of Lionel Strong, Hand of the King. Either way, there's just a ton of real Maury Povich, you're the father stuff happening here. Next, we get into serious How to Train Your Dragon territory with the sons of Rhaenyra and Alicent. Rhaenyra's boys are all brown-haired, while Alicent's sons have traditional Targaryen locks. Alicent isn't having it and tells Viserys as much, In return, he tells her a story about horse sex. I mean, when I say she isn't having it, I think she is very dubious about whether or not Rhaenyra's kids are the product of Laenor and their union. Alicent goes to chat up her eldest son, Aegon, immediate coaches poll preseason #1 absolute national champion in waiting for me here, Aegon, and she interrupts him acting out one of my favorite lines from Rick Ross's Mafia music. I'm not going to read that line, but you can Google it. It involves masturbating from a very high place. Up in the sky, Daemon and his wife, Laena Velaryon, are flying dragons and making friends, scoring an invite for a second residence in Pentos, which I hear is really nice for tax purposes, provided that they throw their superior air power into the fight against that pesky triarchy. I definitely know what they are now, and the army of Dorne. Daemon likes being a mercenary, but his wife misses life in the Driftmark. A sword fighting exercise goes wrong between the Tard kids and the Valyrian boys, leading to a Kristen Harwin brawl and turning up the volume on the Harwin is daddy talk among the royal court. This hangs over a small council meeting where Rhaenyra tries to make peace but is rebuffed by Alicent. Lionel Strong tries to resign his post because he refuses to say, but when he refuses to say why, Viserys refuses to accept, instead agreeing to let Lionel and Harwin beat it to Harrenhal. This turns out to be a bad beat for 2/3 of the Strong family because limping Larys uses this trip as an opportunity to reform the Westeros prison industrial complex, cutting out the tongues of some criminals and having them burn his dad and brother alive. I guess all to put him in good with the Queen. She is a bit taken back by these developments, as are we all. Wow. Woo. Joe.
Yeah.
What was your favorite part about this episode?
It's really hard to pick one, and I know you don't want me to go on forever, but I have.
You can go on for as long as you want.
I have a few. Okay.
Is it radio?
Number 1, we get a mention of Grover Tully, and I just need you, Chris Ryan, to know that George R. R. Martin decided to name the members of House Tully at this era Grover, Elmo, and Oscar. That is a real thing that happens in the book. So get excited.
He's the one who's getting made fun of at the table, right? Like they're like, Tully's, right?
They're like, this is Tully business. You know, Alicent is preaching non-interventionist policy, and Rhaenyra's like, but what if we actually cared about our kingdom? And then the Olivia Cook's line read of one and all-timer great Alicent Byrne from the book. Do keep trying, Sir Laenor. Sooner or later, you may get one that looks like you. This is a great line from the book, and she just absolutely knocked it out of the park. But I think my real MVP moment is Rhaenyra saying goodbye to Harwin, and they're not allowed to like actually say goodbye to each other. So Emma just has to make their face do the entire thing for us, and I just thought that was really incredible.
Love watching little Jace tracking all that in real time.
With their 80s bowl cuts. I love those kids.
Oh, yeah.
The seed is strong indeed. I had a lot of scenes in this episode that I really liked. I had some nits to pick as well, but favorites. Oh, I loved really everything that we got with Alicent and Rhaenyra across the episode. I think the small council moment where they're going from challenging each other on policy and really not only issuing some portents about the future, but also, besides portents, Joe, our fave, also showing their differing leadership styles, but the many different layers at play when Rhaenyra makes her peace offering. This version of, okay, reaching out with this olive branch, but also this is the same desperation that we saw with Viserys when he went to High Tide last episode and everybody sniffed out, which Alicent does here too. The way that we tracked that thread across the entire episode was the highlight. I think in terms of my favorite scene, though, I really loved the training sequence in the yard with Kristen and Harwin and the boys and 8,000-year-old somehow still alive Viserys watching and smiling.
Awesome scene.
Alongside
awesome
Lionel
scene,
from the battlements, and then his face just slowly melting like a candle or like a tower at Harrenhal as he realizes, oh my God, something's really wrong here. I think it felt like a vintage classic throne scene where so many characters are mixing into this little cesspool of bitterness and resentment. And so that was my favorite. And I think like while not every aspect of the time jump worked, and while I think some people will have a lot of questions, literally including who are some of these characters and how did they come to be in this show and how did they come to be together, a scene like that, I think, doesn't work. Or even a moment like Lenore and Rhaenyra walking into and out of Alicent's chambers past Kristen. Scenes like that don't work as well if we don't understand those characters' history with Kristen and Kristen with them, etc. So I think it's emblematic of why, even though it's not perfect and might have been a half measure, those 5 episodes were ultimately necessary.
You know, a lot of Thronesy stuff happens in this episode, and I'll be really curious to see how people feel about it, because on Thrones, when a big character death happens, when a big twist happens, when a big fight happens, typically we've spent 8, 10, 12, 15 hours with that character. We spent 40 minutes with Harwin. Baby. Like, we did not know this version of Lena Velaryon, you know, like, and she obviously, like, I didn't even get to that in the recap, but she had, you know, this incredibly tragic end to her life, and I liked it. You know, I thought it visually was stunning. I thought it was dramatic, but I can't say that we're talking about Thrones level emotions, because typically, like, you had this level of investment with these particular performers playing these particular roles. I'll just shout out, we talked a little bit about Olivia Cook in the beginning of the episode, but you know, we talked a little, and you also mentioned the writing mal of the Harwin Kristen training sequence. I thought Olivia Cook was just great across the board in this episode. Alicent, obviously a divisive character. You know, there are people who are like, I totally get why she's mad. Some people are like, why is she making such a big deal out of this, that, or the other thing? Did Rhaenyra lie? Did she not? Should Rhaenyra be the one who's mad because Alicent's the one who married her dad? You know, there's a lot of, like, very complicated stuff, but she just did a great job of doing things like expressing the vulnerability, but also the hostility that comes probably with being a person in her position. I thought that the scene with Aegon, while hilarious because he's masturbating out of a window, was also quite stunning, because she's just like, when he's like, well, I just won't challenge the throne, and she's like, you are the challenge. You know, like, just your existence is like, it puts a target on your back. And then later on in the episode, when she's talking with Larys, and she's like, I just wish my dad was here to give, like, unbiased counsel to the king. He's like, well, your dad wasn't unbiased or impartial. And he was like, he was partial to me. Like, yeah. I need somebody to be on my side. And it's cool. You watch her go through this episode, and there's a version of it where it's just like Alicent just being, like, essentially some hybrid of Littlefinger and Tyrion and kind of Cersei and Cersei, and moving everybody into place. But instead, it's like you get to see all different sides of her, and I think that's a testament to Cook's performance.
And I think the Cersei comp is, I think, a really popular one for Alicent. But watching her sort of grab Aegon's face and say, "You're the challenge," like, we never saw Cersei do that even to Joffrey, you know. And then, like, unless Mallory remembers something that I'm forgetting, and then to watch her tenderness with Helena, who, you know, Mallory and I were texting before we started recording, is giving us the strongest Luna Lovegood vibes we've ever seen of a character. Just like a real, you know, interesting case. Helena and her, Alicent looks bored, but is also patient. You know, like, as I imagine, we're not parents, none of us on this call, but, like, you know, if your kid gets really into bugs, I guess you sit there and listen to them talk about the bugs patiently. So, you know, the complexity of her role as a mother in this, I think, is really nuanced and great.
Yeah, I mean, Mallory, can we talk a little bit about Alicent and Rhaenyra's relationship?
Sure.
Because it feels like there's been almost like this, I don't know if it's trading places or a transference, but, you know, when we're introduced to these characters, Rhaenyra is strident, confident, is, you know, wants to be this change, just this, you know, kind of progressive leader. And she's not expecting to be made queen, but once she does, I think she starts to realize the enormity of the role, and obviously she's been let in on this secret that Viserys probably hasn't even shared with his wife. And Alicent is a nail-biting wallflower who gets kind of plucked out of nowhere to be the queen of Westeros. Now they seem to have flipped. Alicent runs this shit, and Rhaenyra is kind of a little bit more of an outcast, you know, and it is like is prone more to, like, sort of social faux pas, and, like, her business is sort of on Front Street. Yeah. What did you think of the two of them? But, like, specifically, is there anything I need to know, or the listeners need to know about what could have transpired in the 10 years since we've last seen these characters to now? Like, or is it just like it's always been cold? It's just always been like this. They've been basically fighting at each other for 10 years.
First of all, when you call me Mallory instead of Mal, I always feel like I'm in trouble. Just wanted to note that. There is a lot that happens in this time. I think it will be worth highlighting a couple specifics for some of the characters we lost, specifically Lena and Harwin, when we get to them later, and obviously they connect to then other character arcs and pairings as well. You know, for Alicent and Rhaenyra, I guess it's just worth spelling out the new arrivals in the family. So Rhaenyra is a mother of 3 now. Jacaerys, who goes by Jace, Lucerys, who goes by Luke, and I know you're delighted by that, Chris, because you don't want to learn the complicated names, so you got a Luke in there.
It's even spelled the normal way. It's not even like L-U-C, L-U-K-E. Yeah.
And Joffrey, little Joff. We had obviously met Aegon and Helena as babies. We meet Aemond in this episode for the Alicent Viserys child set. Get sequences of the Dragon Pit, etc. See these kids interact with each other. I like the way that you framed it, Chris, with something that feels almost like an inversion. I think that even within that, there's a lot of nuance, and we see the characters moving in and out of different circumstances across the episode. But so much of our early time with Rhaenyra, for example, was spent with her really rebelling against this idea of marriage as a trap and an institution, childbirth as a death sentence. And so for our first moment with this new version of Rhaenyra to be bringing a child into the world, Joffrey is in her arms in so many sequences across the episode. When she's standing up to make her big pitch at the small council, she has milk leaking out of her breasts, and Alicent, instead of responding to her offer, just says Rhaenyra and forces her to basically sit down in needless and cruel
Alicent also
shame.
never sits.
Right. Right. When Viserys tells everyone else to sit, Alicent and Rhaenyra are the two who stand. So this dynamic of Rhaenyra, on the one hand, you could read that opening scene where Alicent summons the new baby to be brought to her, obviously, to inspect the features and the hair, and is this another bastard son of Harwin Strong? You could read an element of, right away, Alicent is in command and in charge. Also, with the stubbornness for Rhaenyra refusing to allow her to win or to make her feel like she is not in power, there are so many fascinating and really harrowing elements to that relationship. I think it was such an interesting Alicent episode because she has those dynamics with every character. It's there with Rhaenyra across the entire episode. It's very present in her exchanges with Viserys. We see Alicent sitting at the small council chamber. She is in essence ruling for him, unafraid to speak and make decisions, and everybody she calls the session to an end, and everybody is wrapped up in what she is saying, right? So we can see the extent of the hold that she has, not only over Viserys, even though he pushes and challenges a bit, kind of laments how he's being fussed over. You look at the element of her as a caretaker. She puts him in that chair, fluffs his pillow, wraps him in the blanket, but as soon as she's pissed that he won't listen to her and won't heed her warning about how dangerous the parentage of these children could be, how offensive it is to her sense of virtue and rightness, she's like, can you help me? She just pieces out, right? She has these incredible exchanges with all of her children. I thought that you already talked about the Aegon sequence, which was iconic, and I would just like to say, we see already with the masturbating out of the window and the leering at the maids in the courtyard that Aegon is a horn dog. But how fucked up is this kid's sex life going to be moving forward when he's holding his erection in his hand and his mother is just leaning forward, grabbing him on his little floor mattress in his masturbatorium? Everything she says to him, she says to him in that conversation is what Otto said to her. The royal masturbatorium, exactly. Yeah. Everything that Alicent says is the speech that Otto gave to Alicent in episode 5 when he was departing. The exact sentiment is something she has internalized and is espousing. So in some ways, they've each become their parent, even though they are still totally individual and unique characters. And I thought it was fascinating when she was pushing Aemond on his obsession with the dragons, because it's a quiet, quick moment, not quiet, but it's a quick moment. It reinforces, and so does like having the children dressed in Hightower green instead of Targaryen red, that she is not a Targaryen. This is this other element inside of this aspect of the family, which is really important. And then, you know, we got all of the Laris Kristen elements too. These guys, these men who are in her confidence. And I think the most important thing is that she is espousing and touting throughout the need for decency, stopping in her tracks when Kristen calls Rhaenyra a cunt, right? Saying to Laris, this is not what I wanted. The people who are helping her further her end are doing things that challenge the very notion that is at the heart of what she is saying she is trying to protect. And she has to confront that.
Or will she? I mean, like the fake propriety, that Allison puts forward, and then the horrible people that she surrounds herself with. I like how that stands in contrast to Rhaenyra, dragging her like afterbirth blood through the halls, or like
trail of
milk.
blood.
Yeah, or like leaking milk in the small council. It reminds us, of course, of her like walking in from the hunt with the boar blood all over her. Like there's a part of her that is still very much the same, but who is she surrounding herself with? Like people who seem much,
She's surrounding
better.
herself with Carl. I love Carl.
Good old Carl, like Lenore and Harwin, like they've got a cool open marriage. Like it's just like
Carl just likes to party.
Yeah.
What's going on?
Yeah, exactly.
Oh God, Carl.
From pursuing education equity by giving underserved children access to a private 5G network, using AI to detect just rip the steak, conic roll next.
10 years down the line, I don't want to keep repeating the question where I'm like, well, what's happened in the 10 years? Am I just supposed to read that that's calcified and that he has become a very bitter guy who also owes his life to Allison, but like plays into her most jealous or most like sort of angry kind of tendencies when it comes to Rhaenyra?
I don't often mind holding back spoilers because I want people to like get the news when they want to get it from the show, but I have been biting my tongue about Kristen Cole because that dude is a psychopath. Like when he grabs,
and he's just like a hot guy.
Yeah,
and we've
and
been
everyone's like,
blinded by
"Oh,
that.
Kristen Cole," and I just want to be like, "No." When he grabs Jace in the training yard and just sort of like yanks him around, it's like, and like let's look at this thing he said. He says the Princess Rhaenyra is brazen, relentless, a spider who stings and sucks her prey dry. Spoiled C word. Like, this guy, we spent some time last week talking about the ways in which he had a reason to feel vulnerable and exposed, but the fact that he holds on to it for as long as he does smells of like real incel behavior to me. Like, remember that time a teenage girl said, "No, I don't want to give up my entire like throne and life and crown for you."
That's what I'm saying.
And he's like, C word for life, I guess. I just, so the quote in the book, and we don't know the reason why Kristen hates Rhaenyra in the book, but the quote in the book is, "The love that Sir Kristen Cole had formerly borne for Rhaenyra Targaryen turned to loathing and disdain, and the man who had hitherto been the princess's constant companion and champion became the most bitter of her foes." So I would say, message received loud and clear in this episode.
Yeah, I think like a moment like that yard training sequence, obviously Harwin probably should have controlled himself a little bit better and things might have gone differently for dear how strong had he. However, it is also true, and I think I love my time with Harwin. Let me just say that. Really gonna miss our guy Breakbones, or Burnt Bones, as I guess we will now start calling him. Tough end. Yeah, it's sad. Sad to see him go. Those beautiful curly locks.
Baked bones.
Baked bones I like. But it's also undeniably true that Kristen is relishing baiting him. And not only the line, like, brother or a son, but the way that as he's sitting there on the ground bleeding, he's in this inverted position from where he was when he was pummeling Joffrey in the prior episode. There's a Kristen Harwin fight, but it's at a tournament in the book, and Kristen actually wins. And I think you could read this scene and say, oh, this is like flipping it because Harwin wins. Well, he wins the physical portion, but Kristen wins that encounter. He comes out on top because he got what he wanted. He's spitting blood into the ground saying, thought as much, relishing the fact that he has gotten this person who he thinks so little of, who is connected to somebody he deplores, to out himself and reveal this scandalous secret. And he's doing that for Allison, sure. But he is also doing that for himself because it brings him joy to see people he hates miserable.
To your question, Chris, about the 10-year time gap, like, we don't have any information from the book, but something I think this episode underlines for us is that Kristen Cole felt so out of place, so lower class in King's Landing, even though he's a member of the King's Guard. But 10 years on, and being the Queen's like go-to guy, he has this elevated position. So Harwin Strong technically is from a higher born house than he is, et cetera, et cetera. He feels like he can push around. But my question to you, Chris Ryan, is what do you think the employment policy is in King's Landing that Kristen Cole can beat the face off of someone at a wedding and also, I don't know, throw the future, the heir to the realm around in the training yard in full view of the king and still keep his job? How do you feel about that, Chris?
So we're getting to a little bit of my nitpick here, which is that this entire thing is sort of, I think, hinging on the politics of this world, which are not unlike the politics of our world. Let's like there's lots of rumors, there's lots of gossip, there's lots of innuendo and hearsay that fuel like our politics. But Allison is just as kind of like sketch as Rhaenyra is to me. You know what I mean? Like, there is a world in which Rhaenyra could be like, okay, here's the truth. I had sex with Kristen Cole that night, not Daemon. Allison then, like, basically has, like, conducted a decade-long smear campaign of me. I may be with, like, this guy, but Allison, like, basically, like, took my father away from me as, like, a ploy by her father. Like, I just think, like, both sides are pretty fucked up here. Well, I don't understand how Kristen, like, there's no, like, whisper, like, Rhaenyra can't ever grab Viserys and be like, it's kind of weird that your wife's bodyguard is this dude who ruined my wedding big time, committed murder, and now is just, like, her bodyguard, and we don't really talk about that. That's, like, that is, like, either, like what's missing in this, like, in between episodes part, and I wonder whether some people, other people might trip over it, because for as much as I loved the, like, drama that I was seeing, it did annoy me, where I was just like, so Rhaenyra has everybody speculating about every single thing she does, the color of her kid's hair, who her bodyguard is, what her husband's doing, yada, yada, yada. Allison just gets off scot-free with her murdering bodyguard.
I mean, I think obviously throughout the episode we feel once again, and really feel here, how ineffectual Viserys is as a leader. But I think you're right, Chris, because it's not only that, it's like Laenor, the king consort, and the heir to the richest and other than the actual ruling family of the Targaryens, most powerful family in the realm, was punched in the face by this guy who murdered his lover and dear friend. Obviously, they're naming the child Joffrey here after the Night of Kisses, after Joffrey Lonmouth, R.I.P. Took Laenor 3 kids to be allowed to name him Joff.
But he got there.
Has to walk by this guy every day. And so I believe, because of how Viserys functions as a ruler and as this person who is constantly at odds and pulled in all directions inside of his own family, that he would not have a effective solution if pressed on that point. But I would like to know, to your point, if anyone had pressed him on it, if anyone had asked about it, push. It is impossible to believe that everyone would just be okay after what happened, with everybody just conducting their affairs in this fashion.
It's also a question of, like, what does Allison want? Does she want justice or does she want power? Because when Rhaenyra is like, hey, like, let's squash this. We used to be friends. This is bad for the house. I'm going to give you a dragon egg, and I am going to marry my daughter to your son, right? Or my son to your daughter. I can't remember.
My son to your daughter, yeah.
Son to your daughter. And Viserys is into it. He's the king, and Allison walks off and is like, well, we'll think about it, but you gotta go milk. Does Allison want Rhaenyra to be ostracized or killed or, like, whatever it is? Like, what is the goal here for Allison, I guess, is the question.
I think it's a combination of what you just said. She thinks that she's pursuing, and it's what Joe said earlier about, like, well, will she confront? Will she show that self-awareness and introspection? Because she is saying to Kristen, to Larys, to herself, to many people throughout the episode that this is a crusade in defense of virtue and decency almost. And I think that she does sincerely feel that way, but she has begun to do the thing that she used to challenge and push back against her father and her family for doing, which is to pursue power and to pursue her son, Aegon, the path for him to be the heir to the Iron Throne. She is actively pursuing that without question. She is saying to him, you're almost a man grown. How do you not see that these people will try to eliminate you because of the threat that you pose? And I loved the moment, you mentioned it already, but I loved the moment where she shows this real vulnerability in her conversation with Larys when they're discussing Otto and says, he would be impartial for me, toward me, in my defense, in my favor, because that is a thing that no matter how how righteous she wants to think she is a human being desires. And she says, like, will no one in King's Landing help me, align with me? And this idea of her loneliness has fueled her for so long. So she does want power. She does want her side to win. She does want to eliminate. There's no, to your point about, like, could Rhaenyra just say, yeah, smear campaign, Harwin's that? No. Like, the realm would not accept it. Look at what happened with the War of the Five Kings in Game of Thrones when the rumors started spreading about Joffrey being a bastard, about Myrcella and Tommen being bastards. They would not allow those kids to have a path to the throne. The realm would not allow it.
I feel like they might if Viserys were a stronger ruler. Like, there is a world in which maybe, but, like, slim to no chance, and certainly not with Viserys in charge. Yeah, and I think also what I love about this episode is it subtly shows us a few ways in which Rhaenyra, who was, like, deprived politic lessons as a kid, has learned politicking. Like, I loved, like, listening to her talk in the small council, and, like, if there's anyone in this episode who seems worthy to rule, it's Rhaenyra. And actually, one of my favorite lines is, she's arguing with Laenor about the name Joffrey for the kid, right? And she hasn't conceded yet. Then there's a moment when she turns to Laenor and she says, Laenor, Sir Harwin would love to, like, meet Joffrey. So it's a concession to Laenor. Here, you get your way, but also please, can you let this guy hold his child? Like, I just thought that was a really smooth moment. There's a lot of smooth moments from her, and I think that's a real maturation that we see in her.
I was going to wait until the end of the episode to talk about this, but because you're talking about Harwin and because we've been talking all about who Alicent is talking to and surrounding herself with, let's talk about Larys now. So with Larys, he obviously chooses his family. He chooses a new family because he's essentially had his own family murdered.
Essentially.
Joe, a little bit. I mean, he does. And I think in the earlier episodes, I was like, this is a guy, he's kind of like left out in the cold because of his limp, because of his leg. He can't fulfill the usual, like, male military duties that maybe somebody would. But to have your father and brother burned alive is like a step in a much further direction. What was your read on, I mean, I assume like, Larys becomes this, but is Larys just a pure political animal looking for power?
Yeah, definitely we won't look forward, but what I will say is that in that 10-year time jump, when we think about what are we missing, and I know Mallory has a decent list, I would say I would have loved to have seen a scene between Larys and his father, which we never saw, and we saw one scene where Larys and his brother actually talk to each other, and that's it. And so I would have loved to know more, and the book has no answer for me, how Larys feels about his dad and his brother. Obviously not too attached to them, but I would have loved to have seen that dynamic. Yeah. Because a huge moment, you were talking about comparing it to Thrones, like, huge moment in Thrones is Tyrion killing his father, Tyrion killing Tywin, and it's like, what does this mean? And we know because we've spent years understanding what it meant for Tyrion to kill Tywin. So for Larys to make this move, we could draw some conclusions, but again, I would have loved to have seen some of those interactions. This fire at Harrenhal is one of the really fun mysteries of the book because there's like 5 different suspects. Mal, let me know if I miss any. Did Viserys do it? Did King Viserys do it to get rid of Harwin Strong to, like, quelch the scandal?
And then was like, shit, Lionel was there too. Oh no.
Did Corlys Velaryon do it because his son Laenor was cuckolded by Harwin Harwin Strong. Did the ghost of Harrenhal do it? Because Harrenhal is like
the blood in the mortar. Yeah,
considered haunted. What am I missing? I feel like I'm missing one, Mallory.
Damon.
Oh, Damon, of course. We always suspect Damon of killing anyway. If anyone dies, Damon is to blame. So did Damon do it to get Harwin out of the way to?
And of course, Laris is also.
And
Laris is
suspected, but he's like the last and wildest suspect. They're like, maybe Laris Strong, I guess. And so, this episode made it very overt that it was Laris who did it. So, that's just one of the fun aspects of this adaptation is that we're getting answers to the lingering mysteries in the book.
Now, Laris just has access to incarcerated Westerosi like that?
Once again, I have some notes for our guy Laris Strong. First of all, I just want to say I strongly agree with what Joe said about feeling the missing time there in a tough way. Like, we saw Harwin and Laris at the wedding feast, like, whispering to each other about what the green dress meant. And then the next thing is him burning his brother alive. Like, kinslaying's a huge deal. It is among the gravest sins you can commit. This is, like, not a small thing. So the fact that he is willing to do that, I would really like to better understand why. Cutting out a tongue so that the people in question can't speak, it's been done before, or more accurately in the future as well. Like, I know you miss your guy, you're on Greyjoy, Chris. The ship wasn't called Silence for nothing. Cut out all the tongues. But if you want to ensure that people don't rat you out, and yes, Joanna, we should talk about the rat at some point, because the rat is back.
We'll talk about it.
Don't show your face and go make the plea directly, and then don't put your B emblem that is on your cane on their chest, so that
that was a weird move.
Like,
the pins
branded as your murder crew.
Yeah, the pins I have a lot of question about. But like Laris is in the book, he's what's called the King Confessors, which is basically like the royal torturers. Yes. So this is technically his job. He gets to go down there and cut people's tongues out if he wants.
It falls under his management tree.
Exactly. It's in his purview. But the B pins.
The B pin. Got some notes. I loved, though, the closing speech, the voiceover, for a few different reasons.
I know you did,
Joe knows exactly what I'm going to say here. I was like, So, first of all, just phenomenal line reading, great writing. This is the relationship between Laris and Alicent. You're like, boy, are you having these candlelit dinners every single night where, he's obviously passing along this information that he's hearing, and they've built up this trust to the point where somebody walks in the room, everyone stops speaking. This is a true cone of silence relationship. And to see him at the end...
Yeah, if I was Rhaenyra, I'd be like, what's up with this shit? You guys are getting crazy mad at me.
I don't know. If you're Rhaenyra, I don't know if you bring up someone else's relationship with one of the strong sons as a general matter of principle. He's playing with this plant as he's speaking at the end, and it's the same. It appears to be at least a little snippet of this bush that he is, this Bravosi fauna that he's making this big speech about in the prior episode to show how not only he but someone like Alicent could thrive in circumstances where they're not meant to. But that speech, this "what are children but a weakness, a folly, a futility," it gave us shades of so many prior iconic Game of Thrones quotes. There's just a few of them. One, it's the inversion of Tywin's fabled "do you know what legacy is" speech. Because the whole idea for Tywin of legacy is that it's what you pass on to your children, right? It's what remains of you when you're gone. And Laris is saying, what if the thing that you pass on to your children, or rather the fact that you were worried about that, specifically is what leads you astray? This is a really interesting and compelling idea to flip that on its head.
The ultimate Zag.
Laris, big Zag guy. And then this idea of you may know what is the right thing to be done, but love stays the hand, love is a downfall. This is the classic thing we talk about all the time, Aemon's love is the death of duty idea. But there's this real purity and heartache driving it when Aemon and Jon discuss it in Thrones. And there's something so malicious and frightening about the way that Laris is saying it. And I found myself thinking of Varys saying of Littlefinger, he would see this country burn if he could be king of the ashes. literally now the Lord of Harrenhal on a pile of ashes. So we got all of those connections, which was really rich and fun. And we're cutting to all the other characters and scenes that this is about. Rhaenyra arriving at Dragonstone, Daemon and Pentos, the Harrenhal sequence, etc.
And what's interesting is in that same sequence, as he's invoking Littlefinger, he also calls himself a servant of the realm, which is what Varys would always call himself. You know, and I'm like, are you?
So, at the end of that scene, at the end of this episode, I think most charitable, even a charitable read of that is that he is blackmailing her. Because he says, are you going to write your father? I was curious whether that meant to invite him back to court because now there's a help wanted sign for Hand of the King. Is it because I want your dad to know that I looked out for the Hightower family at the expense of my father and my brother, and I expect to be sort of made well for that? What was your read of his intention there?
You feel like he wanted it to read, tell Otto I want him to know it was me. Like that's
yeah, it was kind of like that. Game recognizes game.
Oh my god, a new meme. I love it.
I feel like it's the help wanted aspect is part of it, but also, I mean, he overtly says, I am confident that you will reward me, you know, when you can. So there is a bit of, I think, blackmail in there. And also, yeah, Allison sort of mock her or, you know, whatever. I'm just like, who did you think you were dealing with this whole time? What are you playing at, Allison, in this scene, you know?
Let's talk a little bit about two characters that we love and lost this episode. So specifically, Laena Velaryon, and I mean, we've talked a lot about Harwin, but I want to talk about Laena because we find her and Daemon at an interesting point in their lives. Daemon seems to have adapted to life on vacation. You know, he's quiet quit being a bastard and like lighting people up and killing crab feeders and everything. He just wants to read. He wants to hang out in Pentos, have dinners, be told he's the best. If it means loaning out a dragon from time to time, so be it. But she really wants to get back to Driftmark. She wants to get back to like where she feels comfortable. She wants her child to be born there, etc. I thought it was like we talked about in the beginning of the pod, Mal. Like I thought it was quite a moving scene, but I also was like, it feels like we've really got like 11 minutes of screen time with this character. Yeah. Everything about this episode to me, and maybe this is just because where my interests lie, are pushing Daemon and Rhaenyra back together. But what did you think of the Daemon and Laena Velaryon stuff?
This is where I would like to spend a moment or two talking about things I wish we'd seen, if you'll allow it, because I think that Laena is one of the characters who really suffered from the time jump here, and I'm bummed. I really wish we'd gotten more time with Laena and Daemon and to see how this union came to be. Obviously we get the, you know, making eyes at the high table and the dancing and that fun flirtatious conversation at the welcome feast in episode 5, but that's it. 10 years in the future, we're not only saying hello, we're saying goodbye. So, I love a dragon, Chris. I know you also love a dragon, and I'm sure you carefully tracked how many new dragons we were introduced to in the story, not only visually, but by mention. I so badly, one of the things that Joe and I have been talking about for weeks, I so badly wanted to see Laena claim Vhagar. Like, we cannot overstate the magnitude of claiming Vhagar as your dragon. Vhagar is the oldest living dragon in the world. The biggest was Visenya, Aegon, one of Aegon's sister wives. That was Visenya's dragon. Balon, Viserys, and Daemon's dragon. Like, this is a huge thing. And what's strange to me is that we got these mentions, like a lot of Vhagar mentions in early episodes, including Laena asking about Vhagar, and we'd hear the song at Spicetown, which is on Driftmark. I wanted to see it, and I was confused why it hadn't happened, because when the Laena Viserys match is proposed in Fire and Blood, she's a dragon rider. It's like it could have happened earlier in the story, and I just wish we'd gotten
like
to see
12,
it.
Right? 12-year-old. Yeah, like she's such a badass. She takes Vhagar at 12. Here she says she didn't take Vhagar until she was 15. That's fine, but we still just never got to see her claim this massive scary dragon. It would have been very cool.
I really, really wanted that, and I think it also would have made, you know, that end sequence even more impactful. With the Daemon marriage, just to mention, in case anyone's wondering, in Fire and Blood, that Bravosi betrothal that we heard about happens. Lena is engaged to someone else, and then Corliss just keeps delaying, and eventually Damon makes his way in and kills that kid who challenges him to single combat. Can't believe we were cheated out of another Damon single combat sequence. But the thing I really wanted to mention, and Joe, I suspect this was on your mind as well, is that in Fire and Blood, Rhaenyra and Lena are super close.
Yeah.
They have like a really rich relationship to the point where when Lena is in childbirth again, Rhaenyra goes to be with her and is there when she dies. Like, I'm sad that we did not get that time with the character, and really, really, really wish that we had.
I also, what I really like, again, is they try to sort of shade Damon as gray as they can, given all the things that he actually does in the book and the show. So, like, the line in the book is, Prince Damon fell in love with Lena. The singers would have us believe. Men of a more cynical bent believe the prince Tsar is a way to check his own descent. Basically, ally himself with the House of Velaryon, which has a lot of money. What I like in this episode is, we hear Lena say, I know I wasn't your first choice for wife, but we also see genuine affection from him for her. He's not treating her shittily. They have, they have a bond and a relationship, and so I think that's...
We've seen Damon treat wives worse. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, sure have. I guess the bar was on the floor for Damon to be a good husband. But I also...
It's all upside from here.
But also you asked about this idea of Damon he doesn't want to go back home. He's uninterested. Like, maybe he doesn't have the taste for politicking is the sense we get. And it reminds me of, this is like a trope that, like, the gunslinger hangs up his guns and goes settle down on the homestead with a wife and a family, and then someone comes in and murders them all, and he's like, well, the best example I can think of is Magneto and the terrible X-Men Apocalypse movie, but there are better versions of that trope. But I feel like this is, Damon's attempt at hanging up his guns and just being like, maybe I can be this, maybe I can be a husband and a dad. Not the best dad, because I only pay attention to my daughter who has a dragon,
Right,
but,
exactly.
a dad.
Teaching new languages to Bela because she's a dragon rider, and Rhaena's just like, Dad ignores me as I hold my egg in front of a fire, praying that it will one day hatch. Damon!
Yeah.
Was I right to read some parallels between, obviously, it was pretty clear, and obviously, Viserys made the choice to try and save the baby at the expense of Emma. In this case, Damon at least doesn't say, save the baby, I don't care about my wife. He's kind of in the process of thinking about it when she makes the decision for him and goes out in a literal blaze of glory the way she wanted to as a dragon rider, right, Mel?
Yeah, we hear earlier in the episode, at my end, I want to die a dragon rider's death, not that of some fat country lord. And I will say this. It's a dark scene. We're watching on screeners. I definitely want to revisit this and make sure that we have this completely right. And I'm looking forward to checking this and confirming this before we do House of Art. But when Damon is asked this, you're right, Chris. We definitely don't hear him say, "Yeah, go for it." He's in silence, thinking. It looks like maybe he does a little shake of the head, no.
Yeah.
But I also think we cut to Lena, and it seems that the camera lingers on Lena for a moment in a way that implied it's at least possible she hears this exchange and decides, perhaps because of hearing that, well, I'm not going to leave this up to anybody else. But regardless of that particular interpretation, she wants to die not in the birthing bed. And we've heard throughout the series this idea, the royal wombs from Emma in the first episode, and the child bed is the battlefield, and that's manifesting in so many ways, not only, of course, the women who do die in childbirth, but the way that the children who enter the world are then part of this battlefield and part of this war and the succession crisis. So that idea is stretching throughout the story in all directions. But Lena did not want to leave anything up to anybody else there. And I thought one of the really, hearing the way that she is calling out to, and we see Damon run after her, and the look of like horror and sadness on his face when he sees Vhagar's flames consume her. I do think you can read that as he would have made a different choice than Viserys. I I also think, again, you could read it as Lena wasn't going to wait to find out. So when she's calling out to Vhagar time after time after time, saying Dracarys, there's this like cry from Vhagar, and this moment where we see this bond between Rider and Dragon. And it's so sad because in Fire and Blood, one of the details is that she tried. She had been in this state of fever for 3 days. The baby is born malformed and dies, and Lena is gravely ill on her deathbed and tries to go reach Vhagar and can't. And Daemon finds her on a staircase where she died. So the fact that she was able to reach Vhagar was, I think, probably an improvement over the version that we got there in the book.
I think also we're meant to think of Emma when I believe Viserys is looking at her ring when he's like sitting in front of his model. And he's like, my current wife is really mean. Remember when I had a nice wife? And that happens. And I love what you said, Mal, about this.
Bracy's the rat, by the way, that moment.
Yeah, it is. The generational. There was a line that stood out to me in this section of the book, which is a very short section of the book, but like, there's this line: "The sins of the fathers are oft visited on the sons," and I thought of that most clearly in that courtyard scene when we see Harwin and Kristen using the boys to sort of work out their own issues, and these boys, which Aegon's a little shit, but like what I like is that none of these boys are Joffrey's, at least not yet. I think we see.
I think I was definitely waiting for like some pulling the wings off butterflies.
Joffrey wouldn't have
just
said
more
Pink
seemed like
Dread. He just would have shot somebody with a crossbow.
Yeah, exactly. Right. So they're just like, they're boys at this point, and they're being pushed and pulled in various directions, just like their mothers were. So
episode ends. We've got Rhaenyra heading to Driftmark. We've got Larys establishing a new foothold with Alicent. We've got Viserys kind of isolated and alone, and Daemon, really just doing some top-notch fathering. Just kind of letting his kids soak up the grief there on the wall, and just be like, you'll thank me later.
I'm gonna go. Yeah, you two figure this out.
Any closing thoughts? We haven't seen scenes from next week, so we don't know whether we're gonna get another time jump. But I, for one, I would love it if episode 7 picks up like the second 6 ends. Like if we just literally get like Rhaenyra finding out Harwin's dead, and Alicent finding out Rhaenyra's left, and Daemon be like, I guess I'm gonna go to Driftmark or whatever.
I would also love that. I would also love that. We didn't mention Vermax, another dragon we got to meet. We see Jace's dragon, sweet little Vermax, darling little Vermax that needed a snack, and boy did he get one there. And we learn that there are other dragons in the mix beyond that. Vhagar and Vermax are the two we see, but we hear Sunfire mentioned. That's Aegon's dragon.
And so Rhaenyra's kids can't get them to Dracarys because they don't have that special Targaryen juice.
No. Jace can. He says Dracarys and his command works, and we see also that Luke is there, and thus also we understand Luke is paired with a dragon. They say that Aemond is the only one who doesn't have a dragon, so that's kind of the clarity, right, that everybody else does. And we see as well that Jace and Luke have picked an egg for Joff, sweet little Joff, and we also have an egg with Rhaena, the Daemon and Lena's other daughter. So we have a lot of new dragon energy in the mix here, which is cool. I wish we would see a little bit more of the actual initial moments with the dragons, but that's why it was fun to see the training with Jace and Vermax there. And yeah, Chris, I'm glad you asked that, because there's actually a lot of the parentage rumor mongering and whispers in the books, like, kind of boils down to those eggs are not going to hatch for those plain featured brown-haired children, and they do. So the fact that Jace has Vermax, etc., is something that quiets those whispers.
And what's wild is that they have as much Targaryen in their blood as the blonde kids do. They're both half Targaryen, so.
Right.
Let me tell you one more wish I have.
Yeah.
Joe.
Yeah.
Fool me once, shame on me. Fool me twice with this triarchy.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And shame on George R. Martin,
He has some
these guys better
Dorne mentions.
Yeah, you got a Dorne mention.
They better represent. I want nothing but triarchy next episode.
Like a triarchy bottle episode?
It's the Charlie Brown football. You can't keep introducing it. It's like, if you keep mentioning the triarchy, let me get like the ambassador of the triarchy comes and talks to somebody. It's just we have to have it. Do you agree or disagree, Joe?
We got a mention of this like wild figure from the books. Lenore mentions a Tyrashi general who dyes his hair purple and wears women's frocks. This is a giant, I think is what he calls him. This is Recalio Rindoon. Like, what a name. A Tyroshi Captain General. So I don't feel like they're going to drop the mention and not show us this guy, I hope. So I don't know the answer, Chris. Genuinely, I don't. They could or they could not, but I hope for your sake we get that.
That's the only reason I'm still watching.
Okay. Triarchy
It's the
bottle
Triarchy.
episode just for Chris Ryan. I love it.
Mal, Joe, it was great talking to you about House of the Dragon. People can listen to Mallory and Joanna talk about House of the Dragon extensively on House of R. The deep dive is on Tuesdays. Andy and I are taking tomorrow off for the holiday, but we'll be back on Tuesday. We'll be talking a little bit of House of Dragon. We'll be talking about some other shows, Abbott Elementary, it sets. But, you know, like, we'll definitely have some Westerosi gabbing going on. And then we'll be back with you, everybody, next Sunday night for the next episode. So thanks so much to Steve Altman for producing us, as always, and thanks to Mal and Joe. We'll talk to you soon.
Alright, we're still flying. I think I'm going to try to get down a little bit on the coast and then land. Let's see what podcast we'll go with next. I think we'll go with a podcast called Decoding TV by David Chen. And he and someone named Don Marshall discuss the Rings of Power. This one is on episode 5 of Rings of Power, which just aired this past Friday. I guess that would be September 23rd.
Today we're going to be discussing Season 1, Episode 5 of The Lord of the Rings of Power. The episode title is Partings. You can always find more episodes of this podcast at podcast.decodingtv.com. Email us at decodingtv@gmail.com. And find us on Twitter and YouTube at decodingtv. Don Marshall, before we dive into this week's episode of The Lord of the Rings of Power, I wanted to react to some of the feedback and the tweets and such that we've received about some of our previous work. One of those things being about the multiple timelines theory that was put forward on the podcast last week. And so this theory runs along the lines of, like, the Harfoot stuff feels very disconnected to the rest of the stuff that's happening in the show. This could just be because we're bouncing around different areas of Middle-earth. Or it could be because it's taking place in a different time than when the rest of the events of the show take place. A lot of people objected to this timeline, or to this theory, saying, hey guys, I don't know if you saw in, like, episodes 1 and 2, everyone saw the meteor coming down from the sky, and therefore the meteor kind of joined them all into one world and one timeline. I brought this up to you, Don Marshall, and you had a really quick response to it, right, Don?
I did. Multiple meteors, and here's actually, we'll get into it when we get into the Southland stuff. I think I am even now more on board with the multiple timelines theory because of a very specific sequence of scenes that we see in a Galadriel Halbrand scene as well as a Southland scene sort of mixing together.
I am actually, after this week's episode, less on board with the multiple timeline theory for reasons that we'll get into.
Let's talk about it. Yeah.
So, yeah. Okay, and then there's one other thing I just want to mention real quick, Don, which is that this is a question I wanted to ask you for, like, the last month. But basically, in the first or second episode of the show, Elrond goes to Durin's home of Khazad-dûm and participates in a rock-breaking competition. And he loses. And the punishment of losing is banishment from Khazad-dûm. But then Elrond is seen chilling and hanging out with Durin's family for a long time after that. What gives, Don? What do you think?
I think Durin just decided to change his mind. And that's, I'm chalking it up to just that. Nothing more, nothing less. It's like, he's a temperamental hothead. I guess the prince changed his mind. And hey, if Durin the Third, his dad, is okay with it, whatever.
Yeah. All right. Well, we did get that question a couple times, and I've been having it myself, so I thought gonna pop it to Dawn this week. But yeah, that makes sense. Okay. Of course, you can always tweet at us at DecodingTV on Twitter or email us at decodingtv@gmail.com. Love the questions, love the corrections, and so on.
Yeah, please keep me honest.
Yes. Dawn, let's get into Season 1, Episode 5 of The Lord of the Rings, The Rings of Power. Episode titled Partings. Overall thoughts on the episode, Dawn Marshall.
David Chen, I think that this was a 0 out of 10 because Deeza is not in it.
Mm-hmm.
And now for my actual thoughts. This episode, I went back and watched it a second time, and I liked it better the second time. I'm really loving the series so far. They're making some choices, and I think they're committing to those choices. I don't agree with all of them. I think they could probably do things a little differently, but I'm not going to say it's bad because I disagree with those choices, right? I don't think that makes it any less enjoyable for people that are, haven't read the books or aren't as deep into the lore as I am. We did see a couple of really nice moments in the show that I think shows the potential of what this whole potential 5 seasons could be. We didn't see that sort of overall, for me at least, I felt like I didn't see that all the way through this episode. I'd probably say my favorite is still episode 4. I also had some questionable moments with the dwarves. Made a little bit more sense when I went back and watched it the second time. But overall, yeah, I thought it was an enjoyable episode. How about you?
This was a pretty rough one for me, Don Marshall. Not gonna lie.
Yeah, no, I thought it might be.
And I have to say, I don't think I'm alone in that reaction. I've spoken with a few other people too, and I think that this is probably one of the weakest episodes, and one of the reasons for that, I think, is many of the plot beats feel reiterated from last episode, or the show feels to some degree like it's spinning its wheels. The Galadriel Numenor storyline doesn't feel like it's advanced really very much from last episode. Same thing with the Harfoot storyline. The stranger does more creepy things, and we don't know who he is, and that's kind of it. That's kind of where we were last time we saw the stranger in the Harfoot. So I think that from a plot perspective, it didn't really feel like that much moved along. I will say there was individual sequences in the show that are really, really brilliant. When the Harfoots are traveling, which we're about to discuss, and there's all these aerial shots of them walking in this beautiful Middle-earth landscape, and you hear the singing. It's actually moving.
Oh, it is. Oh, I started
moving. It's so beautiful. It's so beautiful. It doesn't, and that's kind of where I am with this episode, and to a lesser degree, the show as a whole, which is individual sequences I find to be heart-stoppingly gorgeous, beautiful, moving, really well done. How they all join together to have narrative momentum going into the season, a little bit more of a question.
I'm the same way.
I think that the show is, and maybe we'll get to this a little bit more later, but I think that the show is simultaneously moving too quickly and not quickly enough.
No, I hear you.
Let me explain what I mean by that.
Yeah.
This episode ends with them kind of going off from Numenor to Middle-earth, right? And to fight the battles in the Southlands. It's a weird time for that to happen, in my opinion. That moment, to me, feels like it should have happened either way earlier, so we could be part of the adventure earlier, because there's only 3 episodes left, or it should have been the concluding moment at the end of Season 1, and that's kind of the cliffhanger, and then we spend Season 1 involved in the politics of Numenor and understanding more deeply what the relationship is between man and elves. What is it that people believe in terms of their religion or their feelings about the Valar, and whether or not they should be going to help the elves again. All of these discussions should have taken place in a more drawn out way, so we could really feel the difference between these opinions and have them battle each other out in a form of ideas. But instead, it's happened at a very awkward time. So it feels both too fast in the sense that I feel like we didn't get, we got a bunch of pronouncements about why people think we should go or shouldn't go. And then we ended up going. So it's too fast in that sense. It's too slow in the sense that I feel like there's not really enough episodes for this whole plot line to come to a satisfying conclusion by the end of Season 1.
Yeah, No, I agree with you wholeheartedly on that one. I think the pacing they're making very distinct choices. I don't necessarily agree with all of those choices, and I don't know if you were part of the whole like huge explosion of theories way back when the first trailer came out, but there were thoughts and theories about like, or actually, I guess this would even be way before the first trailer came out. Probably a couple months that they're going to focus on Elrond is going to be the focus in season 1 and we're going to see the Elf Kingdom, and then Galadriel is going to be all of season 2 and it's going to shift a little bit to like a more political Game of Thronesy type, and then season 3 is going to be Mordor and coming together, the dwarves, and there was all this speculation and they're sort of all doing it at once. But yeah, I'm definitely feeling like episode 5, while I enjoyed it for those, like you said, individual moments, the sort of overarching story, I want to see them pick up the pace. I want to see it all sort of come together and sort of try to embrace.
It needs to be faster or slower. That's what I'm trying to say.
Yes,
In my opinion, it needs to go faster and get us to the adventure, or go slower and really let us luxuriate in these dynamics of these different opinions that people have about this stuff. But anyway, let's dive into this in detail. So we started with the Harfoots, as I just mentioned. Nori and the stranger have a conversation where I guess she's teaching the stranger English or whatever it is. What's the language?
It's just the common tongue. Yeah,
the common tongue. Yeah. It's interesting. I did a. Obviously, we're covering Andor here on Decoding TV podcast as well, and there's a different language for like the language they speak in that show.
Arabic.
Like,
yeah.
Well, Basic, I think it's called. Like the Basic is what's English.
I'm sorry. Yes, it's called Basic. Yeah,
it's called Basic in Star Wars. What English? And so in Lord of the Rings, Rings of Power, it's the common tongue. So she's trying to teach Gandalf the common tongue, and they're going through
the stranger. We don't actually know it's Gandalf.
Oh, sorry.
Unless you know something I don't.
I don't know anything. She's teaching the stranger the common tongue, and she says, there's peril on the road, and he says, I'm peril. Maybe hinting at the fact that he might become a danger for them. And then there's like a beautiful travel montage that's just like incredible. It's like one of the best sequences I've seen in a TV show all year. Like just
easily
beautiful, like beautiful scenery and beautiful music, and I'm just like, this is incredible. This is amazing.
Megan Richards with this Wandering Day song, I've listened to that probably like 100 times, already. It's gorgeous. Also, sorry, I do a quick correction. Arabesh is the written language in Star Wars that we see. Yeah, so I just, I'm a Star Wars nerd, so I know I don't want the nerds to question my sci-fi experience as well.
No, they would never know. Okay, so then we see a group of people wearing white armor with white hair or no hair, short hair, and they show up at the site of the meteor landing that contained the stranger in it, and they're inspecting things. And I think a lot of people thought this might have been Sauron when this was in the trailers, right?
Yeah. So this is actually if I'm remembering correctly, this is birdie season. I'm hoping I'm pronouncing that correctly. And in the trailer that they released for Comic-Con, there was this assumption that this character that Birdie is playing is Sauron. And everyone was up in arms. It's like, why'd they turn Sauron into Eminem? I was trying to not necessarily do damage control, but everybody chill. It's almost certainly not Sauron. And if it is, the showrunners have been hinting that, maybe we've already seen Sauron, and there's listen, I don't want to. We could have a whole bonus episode about theories.
Is there any way you can tell us why you think this isn't Sauron without spoiling anything?
So this is actually one of the fun parts that I really like about this show, is that for me, they're keeping me in the dark too, because there's no lore associated with this. There were servants of Sauron and servants of Morgoth that, in secret in the dark tried to keep the his power and bring him back, but we don't really get a lot of detail. We didn't know if they somehow turned their hair blonde or whatever. So no, I can't really tell you what this is, other than probably a servant of Sauron or Morgoth in some way or another.
Interesting. Okay. Well, Don, you also think that this scene gives more credence to the idea that the stranger is not Gandalf and possibly a Balrog.
Yeah, I do. I'm starting to think that we're gonna have a little bit more of a bait and switch in either these last 3 episodes, where sort of the timelines and or plot lines converge, or we're gonna have a couple of big twists. We're gonna find out who Sauron is. We're gonna find out who Adar is. We're gonna find out who the Balrog is. And to me, the fact that these evil people are being sort of are searching for the stranger leads me to believe that if he doesn't have a memory, he's gonna remember that he's bad, and that's gonna overtake him some way or another. I'm still, I will say, hesitant, but this made me a little bit more sure that, like, yeah, this isn't gonna end well.
Right, because why would they be? First of all, these people wearing all the white clothing, they look evil, certainly.
They do. They do.
They don't look welcoming.
No.
And why would they be looking for him unless he was originally part of their crew or useful to them in some way? It does seem to lend credence to the concept that maybe the stranger is not completely benevolent.
Yeah.
So
I do also like, I kind of, in a way, I'm almost a little bit disappointed because I think the idea of like a non-binary actor playing Sauron, like, could be a very interesting choice. Like, I don't know if you've seen the Tilda Swinton Bob Dylan movie.
Yeah, I think it's.
What's it called?
I'm Not There. Is that what it's called? Yeah.
I think Tilda Swinton would make an excellent Sauron because.
And I'm
Sauron
pretty
is-
sure it was Kate Blanchett that was in that movie.
Was it Kate Blanchett?
Yeah. I'm Not There. This is the Todd Haynes movie that is about Bob Dylan. Yeah.
Oh God! Oh no! Who am I thinking of then? Okay, never mind. We can. Totally wrong person. Anyway, all of this is to say, I think having this sort of androgyny and mystery surrounding who Sauron is and who these people are adds to sort of the flavor of this Middle Earth adaptation that we're getting.
Yeah. Okay. So we'll see. So you are fully off the Stranger's Gandalf train at this point.
I don't know if I'm off. I'd say I'm 70-30.
70-30
Balrog,
against, it's 70-30 in favor of Vincent Balrog. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So then the Harfoots are attacked by wolves, and the stranger intervenes and picks one of them off before one of them eats Nori, and then he Hulk smashes the ground, as you put it in the show notes, scares the wolves off, but is himself injured by it. And anyway, he's again showing his utility to the Harfoots. I will say, by the way, that one of the things that has been mentioned in favor of the stranger being Gandalf is the idea that all these adventures going on with the Harfoots might demonstrate why Gandalf has such an affection for the hobbits later on in the Lord of the Rings trilogy.
Yeah.
And also the Hobbit trilogy.
Yeah. And I think...
that does seem to be the most Occam's razor, easiest explanation.
I'm a sucker for a twist every once in a while when they sweep the legs out from under me. But yeah, that's probably what's right. I don't know if you picked up on this. There was a really cool detail when the stranger does the Hulk smash. He hits the ground and the wolves go flying, and the wolf that hits one of his, I think it's the back left leg, starts limping with the back left leg as if that is the one that's injured. I don't know why I picked that up, but I looked at that and I went, oh, that was just like a neat little CGI detail. Like, they noticed what part of the body got hit, they made that part of the body injured, and then limped away. I have my own theory about the wolves, though.
Tell me about your theory about the wolves in this episode of Rings of Power.
I won't say this is my theory entirely. This was actually shown to me on Twitter by someone that goes by @HiggyBaby. So @HiggyBaby has a theory. We see the cultists tracking the Meteor Man. There are 3 of them. They appear over a cliff. And then we see 3 wolves. Now, there are shapeshifters. There are werewolves in the Silmarillion. They are hinted at. We don't get a lot of detail about them. They're sort of talked about in very broad strokes. But I like the Higgy Baby's theory on Twitter that this may potentially be a shape-shifting group of cultists that can turn into wolf people.
Perhaps we'll find out. It's the Hickey Baby, by the way.
Yes, it is the Hickey Baby.
Yeah. All right. So Stranger comes in, saves them. There's a scene where he kind of puts himself in this water, but then it becomes ice. Unclear what he's saying. Nori comes in to try to pull his hand out of the ice, but then ends up getting her hand frozen herself. And then he kind of pulls out. There's this big blast, and she's thrown clear, and then runs away. It's kind of scary. I was worried that Nori was going to lose her hand in that scene.
I think it would have been very Game of Thrones of them to just straight up have one of the main characters lose her arm in episode 5.
Yeah.
Certainly would have made for some character development, but given their level of like medicine and skill, I feel like Nori wouldn't have survived that. So.
Anything else you want to say about this whole Harfoot sequence in this episode? I'm still enjoying the Harfoot stuff just because, to me, the stuff that feels the most connected with the lore, honestly, is the stuff that I am least connecting with as a viewer. The Harfoot stuff feels like it's its own adventure, just happening on its own, and we're learning about the society, and yeah, I'm still interested and invested in this. The Galadriel stuff feels like it's moving along because the plot needs to move it in a certain way.
Yeah.
And that to me, that's why, I know people differ in their opinion on this, but that's my feeling. I will say it's a chilling moment when that woman was talking with the guy in charge of the Harfoots that was like, we should have just left them behind. It's like, Jesus, these people are cold-blooded,
Yeah, there's a brutality.
We should have just left them to die. It's like, okay, I guess. Anyway, any other thoughts on this Harfoot stuff?
I want to give a huge shout out to Megan Richards, who sang the song. I think This Wandering Day is rivaling the Pippin Home is Behind song. Obviously not in the same like emotional weight, because the Pippin song in Return of the King is very sad, and this is again just going along with that mentality that you taught me, David. No thoughts, just vibes. And the landscape of New Zealand, right? The landscape shots are beautiful. The little montage of the travel, I was a little bit worried we were just gonna like watch them travel for 5 seasons in like a very boring Mad Max Fury Road, but with hobbits. And
that actually sounds pretty awesome. I'm just gonna put that out there.
I mean, I'd watch it, but I don't think the Tolkien estate would let us do that.
All right, we're going to end it there. I think we landed in Aberdeen, Scotland. So we are continuing our path through the United Kingdom, and we will pick it up from there next time on Microsoft Flight Simulator 2020 World Tour.